Hello, everyone. Welcome to the pre-show, where you get to look at the back of my head for a little while. We've got 10 minutes until showtime. If you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward until we get to, there we go, hi. We can fast forward until you get to about 10 minutes from now. If you're watching this live, you could fast forward as well if you have the ability. If you're a Time Lord, you're more than welcome to do that. I will be watching what's going on the chat. I should probably put something in there like 220-1002 A+ study group starts at the top of the hour. And the link at professormesser.com/live, that if you are watching this over on YouTube, you might want to head over to live so that you can actually see it, which indeed is the key when it comes to a live stream, is the seeing it part. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We've got all 220-1002 questions for you today. So this will all be related to that new A+ exam, the new Core 2 A+ exam. So we'll get all of your questions also in the second hour. Open up the phone lines. You can call in. You can leave me messages in the chat, questions in the chat. And it's open phone lines. We can talk really about anything. We can talk about A+. We could talk about certifications in general. We can talk about careers. We can talk about Division II's release and early play for pre-sale orders that is happening in just a few days. You might never see another video from me. I'll just be playing Division II. No, you'll see videos from me. I have some videos now that will be posted shortly. We've got other videos shooting tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get through all of the 1001 videos tomorrow, maybe the next day. So by the end of this weekend, the first course will be done. We'll actually start working on the second one. So that's all good. That is all good. Welcome, everybody. I see you joining the live stream. Thanks for being here. The live event chat you'll find at professormesser.com/live. There should be a chat there at the bottom of the screen. I guess it'd be a good idea if I actually check that and make sure that that it actually is there. Be at professormesser.com/live. If I type the right thing into my screen. Because I updated it earlier, but did it really put the chat there? It did. So the chat's there. You'll find everything there. Let's do a quick camera check. There's one. My camera was completely unzoomed earlier, so I had to play around. I connected to it, and it was like this. That's not what we're shooting for, people. Nobody wants that. So we're trying to sync it up here exactly where it should be. I think that's pretty close. That's pretty close to where it should be. Then we've got camera 2. That's the one you were just looking at. Camera 3 is what's on the front screen in front of me. If you look at this, it's the one that's right here. It's camera 3. And camera 4 is my laptop, which you can't see very well, but that's what's on my laptop right now. So we're watching people come in. Got to get my presentation up and make sure that works. Let's try camera 4 with the presentation there. That looks a little nicer. There we go. So that's perfect. That's way zoomed out. That's a better shot. That's a more accurate shot of what's happening here. That's a little closer. That's nicer. Okay. Welcome, Derek. Oh, you got your A+. Congratulations. The questions and the notes, I'm glad they helped. And Network Plus, yes. Network Plus, I think, is the more fun. Plus, it's only one exam. I like the topics in Network Plus more. They appealed to me more. I guess that's why I went into networking. And then security because of that. We've got about 6.5 minutes to go, and we'll get that going. Welcome, everyone. We've got a bunch of questions today from the 220-1002 exam. So there will be plenty of that in this first hour. I think I've almost got everything working. We had obviously our study group 2 days ago was 1001 study group, and I've got a bunch of new equipment, and so things were not exactly the way I like them. I am a perfectionist when it comes to those things, and there were things I had to tweak and change. So I think we have tweaked and changed pretty well at this point. I think they're working as I expect them to be. I'm still not 100% happy with the stream quality. I think that's more of a YouTube thing than it is on my thing. Done a lot of testing, done a lot of trials, tried a different software. I think the issue is really related to YouTube. But there's no way around that. We'll figure out the best detail. Well, there are ways around that, not to use YouTube, but I like using YouTube. They're great. Hey, Barry, congratulations. Passed A+ February the 4th. Congratulations. How long have I been doing this for? Well, I've been in here all morning. That's what I've been doing. We've been live for 5 minutes. I think you were asking a different question. As a company making training materials, we have been around for about 14 years. So there you go. That's how long I've been doing this. Really, it's a little longer than that professionally. Been in IT for, well, since got out of college. So just a few years ago. Work with me, people. Work with me. I thought I turned all of this off. Apparently I did not. Yes, I did. Okay. Welcome from Canada. Good to have you here. I've got to, I'm going up to Canada shortly, planning a trip to Vancouver, taking Mrs. Professor Messer to see the family. Go up there. That'll be fun. We're going when it's warmer, a couple months. We're going, I'm based in Florida, so I'm not ready for the Canadian winters. I would not be able to handle it. I could handle it. I'll bundle up with layers, that type of thing. Can you get into IT career with just an A+ certification? Well, you could. I would really recommend you have more than that. I think like anything else, you need as many different things on your list as possible. Certification is certainly one of those. So welcome, Bolivia. I was waiting for Bolivia to get here. We weren't going to start until Bolivia arrived. So you're here now. So we can, in 3 minutes from now, we'll get started. 2.5 minutes, we'll get started. There were people that were watching, or they were telling me they were watching the video. They just didn't want to watch any of my videos because they just didn't want to look at the back of my head the whole time. I had to explain to them, that's just for the pre-show. You only see the back of my head at the pre-show. You get to see me talking the rest of the time. Whether that's good or not, I don't know. Maybe it's better if you only see the back of my head. Maybe that's what we should do. Welcome, Kansas City. Casey Mo, most importantly. Let's get the Mo part there. Connecticut's here. UK, welcome. The questions. Where can you answer the questions later? How about answering the questions now? All the questions that I'll do today live will be at professormesser.com/QA. There's a link at professormesser.com/live. All the links, all the info, all the blah, 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 all that's there. You'll find everything. professormesser.com/live. So that helps too. Let's see. We're very close to getting started. Just a couple minutes away. We'll get things going here. So welcome. Why USB flash memory is not good for long-term storage? Because it's not designed for long-term storage. First, you're going to lose it. That's the first thing. That's why USB flash memory is not good for long-term storage, because you're not going to be able to find it later. And secondly, SSD drive or flash drives, they're easily broken. That's another good reason for not having it for long-term storage. And it's because it's not designed for long-term storage. When it goes faulty, when it goes bad, you're done. It's not there. I wouldn't say SSD is fantastic for long-term storage either, but you kind of need multiple storage options for those things, don't you think? Are you allowed to donate? I don't accept donations. So sorry. Sorry, Cincinnati. No donations. Next time, I guess you're Montana Jackson. So sorry, Montana. No donations. I appreciate the idea, though. I actually really appreciate the idea. I just don't do that. So that's how we go. Let's get things started, though. I should probably get all of this. So I got to push buttons and get things ready to go. So Here we are, everybody. Let's do a study group. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the March 2019 220-1002. That's a difficult name to say for just an A-plus study group, isn't it? I think that's probably why CompTIA now calls it Core 2. So welcome to the Core 2 study group from your friends here at Messer Studios. My name is James Messer, and we're coming to you live from the headquarters, the worldwide headquarters for Messer Studios here in Tallahassee, Florida. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to do all Q&A this first hour. So in a whole hour of Q&A that's available, we're going to talk all about the 220-1002. We're going to go through all of the topics specific to that exam. For those of you that followed these study groups in the past, you know that we've done a single A-plus study group. Well, now there's two different A-plus study groups. There's one for the 1001 and one for the 1002, and this is the 1002. So thanks for being here with this one. We would not be able to do this without you. I've got plenty of things we're going to do today. This first hour will be Q&A. The second hour is going to be mostly related to whatever you'd like to talk about. It's open phone lines. So that kind of helps too. If you're going to come back and have a question about career, you have a question about certification, or you have a question about anything else, almost anything else, you can ask that in the second hour. So stick around for that as well. We can also ask questions, answer questions about this transition period between the 900 series exams and the 1000 series exams. Happy to do that. For those of you that have gone out to ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube, that takes you over to my YouTube channel. Thank you for subscribing. This really does go a long way. There's people at YouTube now I can talk with because they've seen that you're supporting the channel. So that support means a lot. If you don't have money to purchase any of my products, but you would still want to find some way to help out, that's an absolutely free way to do it. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I'm putting new A-plus videos out right now. Well, not right now. I'm doing something right now, but later on, there will be some A-plus videos that are coming out in the next few days and ongoing for the next number of weeks. If you want to be notified when that happens, be sure to click the bell on that. Also, a free A-plus study group question every day on Twitter. Follow me at ProfessorMesser.com/Twitter. Just type in ProfessorMesser.com/ the name of the thing you would like to find me on. I occasionally will put an Instagram picture, so you can go to ProfessorMesser.com/Instagram. So you get the idea. If you are watching today, you will absolutely be able to get continuing education unit credit. I will tell you when that happens. You have to keep watching for that to happen. So make sure that you go to, or that you listen in. You don't have to go anywhere yet. I will tell you what to do for continuing education unit credit, but you have to listen because I'm not going to tell you until sometime else during this first hour. That should keep you on your toes. That should let you know what's going on there. And we'll talk more about that if you'd like in the after show. There are 2 A-plus exams available right now, by the way. Some of you may be studying for the 900 series exams. Kevin in the chat room just said he passed his 901 and 902 on Thursday. Wow, both on one day. Congratulations. So people will be taking the 900 series exams really until they retire on July 31st. Trust me, on July 31st, people will still be taking those exams. So if you're planning to take those exams, absolutely keep doing that. You will earn your A-plus certification by passing both of those exams. But you have to make sure you get both of them done before they retire on July 31st. That's a pretty important date. Make sure you have that and know that that's there. There is also another brand new set of exams, the 1001 and the 1002. They were released in January of this year. So relatively new. They're so new that there really aren't any textbooks out for it yet. My course notes are available, but the formal textbook, the big thick textbooks you're used to seeing for A+, not even available yet. They're probably going to be available next year, I would think. You'll happen to see that there. So that's one that does come in handy for those types of things. You do want to have that knowledge of when the exam is going to retire and when the exams are available, and perhaps also when the books are available as well. The requirements for both exams are identical. So make sure that you know the differences between those two, the 220-1001 and 220-1002. You have to score 675 on the 1001 out of a scale between 100 and 900, an odd little scale. And then for the 1002, you have to do a little bit better. A 700 is what you need. So the difference between the two, though, is not much, about 20% difference. There's, or I should say, 20% of the content on the 1001 and the 1002. There's about 20% of that content that's brand new. So there might be a little more different because some things were dropped off of the exam. But as far as new content is available, 20% of it's new. That's a significant number, by the way. If you have been studying for the 900 series exams, don't go in and take the 1000 series tests because there's enough difference that you could do very badly on the exam. It could have a significant impact on your score, and you don't want that to happen either. Fortunately, the content on the exams, both the 1001 and 1002, relatively similar to the 900 series. It's really just a minor update, a 20% update, if you want to look at it that way. So if you are in a situation where you've been studying for the 900 series and you're thinking to yourself, I'm really not comfortable with making that July 31st date, and I think I'm going to now change direction and move to the 1000 series exams, as it turns out, it's not a big change. You're making just a minor turn, if you want to think of it that way. A 20% turn. Not much to change, not much to do different. You're not going to have to start over. There's not going to be having to redo anything. You're just going to have to learn the things that are new in the 1000 series. This study group, by the way, is available for you to listen to in audio form in a podcast format. So if you have a podcast program you use and you would like to have this automatically downloaded to your podcasting program so you can listen in your car, when you're working out, when you're away from a screen, you can do that. It's all available absolutely free at professormesser.com/podcast. You can also listen and stream it from that page as well. So if you don't have a podcasting program, you're not into that thing, just want to listen, that's one way to do it. Obviously, the video replays are always available on my website at professormesser.com. They're usually available right after we're done. It usually takes a number of minutes, half an hour to an hour for the video to completely render. And at that point, it's available. That video, by the way, if you wait about a day, will be completely indexed. My marketing manager, Lori, will go through all of the video and we'll put timestamps on there. So if you're somebody who wants to jump around or you remember hearing about something and you want to go back to that point in the video, there will be an extensive index available that you can go to. And that's available on all of my replays on YouTube. You can find them all there. So you've got that available. We're going to do questions and answers there right now. Our questions and answers, you want to go to professormesser.com/QA, and there will be a question already waiting for you. So that's a good way to check. There's also an app you can get on a mobile device. You want the Socrative Student app, and it will ask you for a room name. If it does ask you for a room name, the room name is Professor Messer, PROFESSORMESSER. So make sure you spell that right. That's a pretty important part. Make sure you know all of those. So if you do all of that properly, there will be a question waiting for you. And here is the question that asks, the boot process of a Windows 10 computer takes 15 minutes to complete. Which of these tools would be the best way to identify the problematic startup application? This, by the way, is a feature or something that we talked about a month ago. So you want to absolutely go and have a look at maybe what we did a month ago. Or if you were here a month ago, you may remember this one. So if you think you know the answers, I'm going to hide the answers real quick on my screen so you can see. The possible answers are Task Manager, Local Security Policy, Component Services, Task Manager, and Performance Monitor. There are your 5 different options that are available. So the boot process of a Windows 10 computer takes 15 minutes to complete. Which of these tools would be the best way to identify the problematic startup application? Task Manager, Local Security Policy, Component Services, Task Manager, Performance Monitor. And you can see that 62% of you chose the answer from last month, which was Task Manager. So that is one where it's more of a troubleshooting question, and certainly troubleshooting questions will be part of what you need to know on the A+ exam. This is one of those troubleshooting questions you will inevitably run into. It's a very common problem. Make sure you know about these. You start up a computer and it hangs. You start up a computer and it takes forever. There are delays. Well, how do you figure out what those delays might be? One way is to manage the startup applications, which this is asking about in this particular question. How can you identify the problematic startup application? And the best answer here is Task Manager. Inside of Task Manager is an option for startup, and you can modify what applications are starting during the startup process. You can turn them on and off. So you can disable them one at a time. You can disable all of them, reboot, and if it now is working okay, you can start adding them back slowly. It's whatever troubleshooting process you would like to go through. So those of you that did answer Task Manager, that answer D, the 67% of you got that one absolutely right. There are other answers here we went through last month, why those answers are correct and not correct, but at least now you can see the questions, you know how to answer the questions. Hopefully you're able to get there at professormesser.com/QA and get those questions answered. Let's do some new questions. Let's do one, a couple of questions that are very different. One of the things that you're going to find on the A+ exam is that the first handful of questions on the exam are not multiple choice questions. We're so used to multiple choice questions on these types of exams. I just gave you a multiple choice question where you had to answer A, B, C, D, or E. But the first few questions on your exam will be other types of questions. They are not going to be multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might put you at a command prompt and ask you to type things in. They might give you a matching question. Maybe you have to drag and drop. Maybe you have to put things in order from highest to slowest, fastest to lowest. You're never quite sure exactly what they're going to ask of you, but it will be something related to the content in the exam objectives. So think of this just as another way to ask you about those normal types of things you would be expecting. So the first question I have for you is a performance-based question. So this is not one that is a multiple choice. Let's take a look at this question. This is actually going to be a hard one. It's a fill in the blank. We're going to pop you into a command prompt. And here's what you have to do at this command prompt. A network administrator is troubleshooting a network issue with an application and would like to see all of the network connections currently active from a user's workstation. The network administrator would like this listed by IP address and not by fully qualified domain names. What command should be run from the command line of the user's workstation? Now, if you think you know the answer, do not answer in the chat room. No hints in the chat room, please. We want to instead go directly to professormesser.com/QA. Go to your Q&A, and I've got information in here for you to type in. Now, I'm asking for a very specific command line with very specific options. So let's look at this question again and make sure we understand what it's asking of us. The question asks, a network administrator is troubleshooting a network issue with an application and would like to see all of the network connections currently active from a user's workstation. The network administrator would like this listed by IP addresses and not by fully qualified domain names. What command should be run from the command line of the user's workstations? And I think many of you have a pretty good idea of the type of command you want to run. Others, I'm going through the list of what people are typing in. Let's see if I can find somebody who has really gotten the right answer on this one. I actually don't see the right answer yet. I see some that are very close. Some that are very close, and you're doing a very good job at knowing this, but there are some very specific qualifiers in this question that you have to figure out. This is very common, by the way, to the questions that will be asked on your exam. They're very wordy. They talk a lot about the problem. You almost have to be a speed reader on the exam just to be able to get through all of the questions within the allocated amount of time. So this is one that's asking you multiple things in this particular question. So you have to know at least 3 things to answer this question. And that's a good example, by the way, of a performance-based question on the exam. They're not going to give you any hints. You don't have a structure to pull from. You don't have multiple choice questions to pull from. And this is one of the reasons, by the way, that one of my strategies, one of my recommended strategies for you is that you skip the performance-based questions at the beginning of the exam. So we'll skip over this handful of questions because CompTIA allows you to go to any question at the exam at any time. You can start at the end and work your way backwards if you wanted to. I don't recommend that. But I do recommend jumping over the performance-based questions, going straight to the multiple choice questions, because at that point, you can now start focusing on something that gives you options. And what I also find is a number of the multiple choice questions help jog my memory with things that are part of the performance-based questions. So you might find a multiple choice question almost gives you the answer that's going to help you with a performance-based question. Just watch your time, make sure you have enough time to come all the way back to the beginning and go through those performance-based questions again, because you don't want to leave any of them blank. Let's find out what the answer of this one happens to be. So we know that the network administrator is looking for a list of network connections that are currently active from a user's workstation. And the command that's going to do that is netstat. That stands for network statistics. It is a utility that is multi-use. This is a very powerful utility with many, many different options. But for the purposes of the A+ exam, there's only a few options you really need to know. The ones that we're going to focus on are the ones that show the active connections from a user's workstation. That was our first requirement, by the way, that we needed a list of all of the active connections from a user's workstation. So you had to know netstat as your number one thing. You had to know that the -A option gives you a list of all of the active connections. A is for active. You can also get a list, by the way, of all of the binaries. If you're in Windows, it will show you what program in Windows is sending this traffic out. That was not part of the question, though. But part of the question did ask you to list all of this by IP address and not by fully qualified domain name. As you're using netstat by default, it will try to resolve the IP addresses and show you the name of the device instead. And sometimes you don't want that. Sometimes you're really just wanting IP addresses. So the way that you would do that is to use netstat-n to not resolve the names. So you combine those two things together, netstat-a-n. That's your correct answer. And as I'm flipping through, some of you very familiar with netstat. You're even giving me other options available on here. Some of you did do a good job with knowing the -a. Some of you did not know about -n. Now, it would not be ipconfig. A number of you did answer ipconfig on this one. If we go back and look at the question very specifically was asking, I'm going to move back here, was very specifically asking to see all of the network connections currently active from a user's workstation. ipconfig will only show you the local workstation's IP config. It will only show you what the device is configured with from an IP address, subnet mask, default gateway, DNS, and so on. It does not show you all of the network connections currently active from a user's workstation. So that's important consideration. The only thing that will show you that reasonably is netstat. And that's the one we were looking for, and most of you were able to do that. So if you answered netstat-a-n, you got that one absolutely right. Well done. Let's move away from performance-based questions now. Let's go back to our multiple choice questions. I've got one for you, and you may not like this one either, because this one, the 1002 command or 1002 exam, does add quite a bit onto this. The question that we have for you is, what command would be the best choice for changing the ownership of a file on a Linux server? Which command would be the best choice for changing the ownership of a file on a Linux server? Your options are chmod, dd, mv, chown, and pwd. Those are your 5 options for changing the ownership of a file on a Linux server. If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you can answer that live as we're here. If you are watching this in the replay, by the way, that option for going to professormesser.com/QA, it's not available to you. So sorry. But you can still follow along. So even though you can't interactively go to professormesser.com/QA, you'll go there and there's nothing happening there. There's no questions, there's no answers, and you're wondering what's happening. We're not live. If you ever want to participate live, we'd love to have you here. You can always go to professormesser.com/calendar. And there's also a calendar link right at the top of the Professor Messer website. You can always find out when is the next live event going to be. You can sign up for some notification email lists. You can see updates appear on Twitter. You'll see updates appear on Facebook when we're live. There'll be a banner at the top of the screen. You can't miss it. For this, which command would be the best choice for changing the ownership of a file on a Linux server? Your options were chmod, dd, mv, chown, and pwd. You have 5 options there for changing the ownership of a file. Let's see how you did. Should we reveal it? Is it time? Let's have a look. Well, we can see that 61% of you said answer D, chown. We've got 25% that said it was chmod. There are single digits for the rest. 7% said pwd, 5% said dd, and then 3% said mv. This is an interesting question because it's, first of all, if you're a Linux administrator, this is something you're going to be doing quite a bit. You need to know how to do it. And secondly, it is absolutely part of the CompTIA exam objectives. There is a big list of Linux command line, really it's Linux and Mac OS command line options there, because all of the command line options that are listed there work pretty much the same, whether you're in Linux or Mac OS. They definitely don't work the same if you're in Windows. Windows would obviously be a very different animal than that. But since Mac OS is a derivative of Unix, specifically BSD, then you've got a lot of overlap between functionality of Linux and Mac OS at the command line. So that helps a little bit. If you know Linux at the command line, you know a lot about Mac OS at the command line, which is nice. So the question here is, was it chmod or was it chown? That's what we need to know. And if you're changing the ownership, it's almost in the name, isn't it? It is chown. If you needed to change the owner of the file to a username or to a group, this is the way you would do it, is to use chown. And when you are listing out the files, you can actually see the files that are there and who owns them. So if you wanted to take a file, for instance, here's a file called script.sh that is owned by user backup. But I would like to take ownership of that file so that I can have the rights and permissions that are associated with an owned file. So I can use the chown command with my username, which is professor, with that file, script.sh. And when I run that, you can see the ownership of the file has changed to professor. So if you're ever in a situation where maybe an installation program or someone else has changed the ownership of a file and you want to change that ownership back, you can do that. You can also change the ownership by group. So if you want, instead of just professor, the group associated with this file is staff. If you wanted to change the group, you could do that as well using chown. So whether it's the name or the group, there's the command line options there that allow you to change the configurations of that file. This does become pretty important when you start running different applications that are expecting you to have access to a file. And if the ownership is not set properly, that application is not going to be able to work correctly. So you do have to make sure your ownerships are correct in Linux. You can if you're not familiar with ownerships in Linux, it will drive you crazy trying to troubleshoot problems. So this is actually an extremely useful Linux command. You will be using it quite a bit if you're in Mac OS or you're in Linux. And if you aren't understanding why you're doing it, that's the point you should step back and say, wait, what is this chown command doing exactly? And break down those different pieces. That does come in handy. So those of you that did answer D, chown, got that one absolutely right. Now 27% of you chose chmod. The chmod is used to modify the file attributes. So with any file, you've got these attributes at the beginning that are set up to be allocate whether a user or a group has access to read write, to execute the file. You've got those options available for the users, for the groups, and for everybody else. So you can modify those, but you modify those with chmod. So that does become handy to know that. The dd command is used to take data from one section of a device and move it or even change it as you're moving it to a different location. So that's another one that you might want to use if you're backing up a set of files or backing up a partition. You'll very often use dd, but that has nothing to do with changing the ownership of a file. We also have the pwd command, the present working directory. Shows you where you are in the directory structure. That, again, that has nothing to do with changing the ownership of a file. And the mv command, again, another valid Linux command that's used to move files from one place to the other. So sort of like copying and then deleting it after you copied. That's a move. So that has nothing to do with changing the ownership of the file either. The only option here that would work is indeed that chown command, and the 60% of you that answered that one correct got absolutely right. Well done. Nice job. Let's move on to some networking questions, shall we? I've got one for you. Here's a networking question about wireless networks. And this question asks, what type of wireless network security limits access using physical hardware addresses? What type of wireless network security limits access using physical hardware addresses? Would it be SSID suppression? Would it be WPS? Would it be static IP addressing? Would it be MAC filtering? Or would it be WPA2? So those are your 5 options. And if you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please, no answers and no hints in the chat room. What type of wireless network security limits access using physical hardware addresses? Is it SSID suppression? Is it WPS? Is it static IP addressing? Is it MAC filtering? Is it WPA2? You've got 5 good options. They are all valid, real wireless networking technologies. So you have to now start deciphering from all of these real world things, which one of it fits the requirements of this question. What type of wireless network security limits access using those physical hardware addresses? Maybe you've done this type of filtering before. That's one that does come in handy. It's one that you have to know whenever you're working through these. This is one where if you aren't even exactly sure of what the answer is, you may be able to break it down. This one's relatively straightforward question. In fact, you don't often get a lot of straightforward questions on your exam. You will get a few of these where it's just you need to know the definition of how to implement that function. A lot of the questions are going to be you choosing the most correct answer. Which one of these would it most likely be? This was not one of those questions, fortunately, that should be relatively straightforward if you know your wireless technologies. And that's really what I wanted to test you on this one, is really understanding the differences. And by the way, you should know all 5 of these wireless technologies. If you don't, there's another opportunity for you. Even if you get the question right, do you know what all these other things are? Well, we'll talk about what all those other things are in just a moment. Let's step through this question and see how we did. And we didn't really fool many people on this one. 80% of you did choose the right answer, which is MAC filtering. That is one of the easiest ways to limit access on a wireless network using a physical hardware address. The physical hardware address is your MAC address. So we're filtering out based on that media access control address. Not to be confused with the Mac operating system. That's a different thing entirely. A Mac filter isn't about filtering Macs. It's about filtering physical addresses. You don't want you're filtering iPads. Nope, that's not what Mac filtering is. It's a completely different thing. So that is the correct answer. MAC address filtering is, I wouldn't say a common security tool because it's not a security tool. It's not even really good access control either. It is a way, and this option is available in almost every access point you will find, is a way to limit access to the wireless network based on a physical address. Part of the problem, of course, is that it's very easy to find a valid physical address on a wireless network by simply using a protocol analyzer. You sniff the air, and you're able to see all of the devices that are currently talking on the network. So if you can see that, you know what all of their MAC addresses are. All you have to do is wait for one to leave. And then you can change the MAC address of your device, and now it gets through the filter. Because changing a MAC address on a device is a relatively easy process. Most network drivers allow you to do that for a number of very valid reasons. Well, this would be a reason that's not really as valid, but the functionality is still there. This is what we call security through obscurity. Security through obscurity is one that does, people do think this is really, really security, but it's not. If you know the method being used, you can easily circumvent the security. That's what security by obscurity is. And people are saying, well, if you can sniff it, how does it keep the neighbors out? Well, that was the idea, of course, between this. Well, maybe it's just my neighbors. My neighbors aren't capable of sniffing the air and changing their MAC address. Maybe your neighbors are a little more savvy with their security and networking techniques. And if that's the case, then that won't apply. That particular line doesn't apply to you. It just keeps out my neighbors. My neighbors are the ones who call me when they want to do those types of things. They're not going to be able to do that. So that's why that says that on the slide. People in the chat room are like, wait a second. I thought you said this doesn't work for security. It doesn't. And eventually your neighbors, their teenage kid is going to figure it out. So really that particular line gets erased pretty quick in that scenario. Let's talk about these other technologies that are here. Why wouldn't it be any one of these? 10% of you chose WPA2. WPA2 is an encryption methodology that is used on wireless networks. It does not limit access by physical hardware address, however. It has nothing to do with physical hardware address. It limits access based on a security key. So that's a very different type of access control used in WPA2, which has nothing to do with the MAC address. 7% of you chose static IP addressing, which is certainly a way to manage your IP addresses. It's a very difficult way to manage IP addresses. Some people insist that this is another way to provide additional security. It is not. Anybody can figure out an IP address scheme if they're smart enough on a network. And so static IP addressing might limit what you're able to provide on a network, or would limit someone's access to a network unless they knew the IP addressing scheme. But again, that has nothing to do with a physical hardware address. SSID suppression. SSID suppression will limit the messages being sent by the access point that populate the list of available networks. So normally when you list out all the networks around you, it'll bring you up a list of everything you could possibly choose from. And if you suppress that from your access point won't show up in the list. That doesn't prevent anybody from accessing your network. It only doesn't show the name. If somebody knows the name, and by the way, they can find the name again through network analysis, through sniffing the air. They're able to find those names pretty easily. You can simply manually tell your machine, please connect to this network that's not actively advertising itself. So that's another one that doesn't work so well if you're considering that from a security perspective. All that really does is keep your list of names smaller. So if you have 20 of these names on your list, you'd like to get rid of some of them in your work environment, you could turn on suppression. It will get rid of some of those names that aren't necessary. And WPS. That WPS is a way to connect to a network if you happen to know a personal identification number. That certainly isn't limiting by physical hardware address. It's limiting based on a PIN. And in reality, that one doesn't work very well either. If you go to your access point, you have a look right now, you log in, there's probably a screen that lists out all of the MAC addresses. This is from My Business Gateway. It's on every access point. That allows you to enable a filter and then put all the filters in that you would like to have there. This one makes it a little bit easier. You can list out all the connected computers, and then you can simply click a button to add them to your list. It's not a very good way to rely on security. I do not recommend it. There are many, much better ways. Lots of different ways to make your network more secure. This is not one of them. So that's one, but you do need to know that. Some people have asked me and sent me notes saying, why are you talking about this if it's not good? I'm talking about it because it's not good, because it's right there in your access point and you shouldn't be using it. That's why I'm talking about it. So those of you that did answer MAC filtering, 79% of you now, absolutely correct. That is the right answer. Well done with that one. There's so much content on this A+ exam. It is extensive. And if you go through my videos, you'll notice the exams are very broad. You don't have to go super deep with any of these topics, although some do go relatively deep. But you don't have to go super deep, but it's so many different topics available. And I highly recommend, of course, you watch videos, you get a good book, you do plenty of Q&A, you get that hands-on that you need. But sometimes you just need a summary of everything. And so I created one. These are my course notes. These are my 220-1001 and 220-1002 course notes. These are full, complete course notes that cover every topic from the CompTIA exam objectives. They are associated directly with every single one of my videos. So if you're somebody who doesn't take good notes or you don't have time to go through every video and take notes, I've already done it for you. It's right here. In fact, I'll show you what they look like on my screen. I'm going to try anyway if I click the right buttons. Here's the course notes. Here's the cover. So we'll look at them. Has a big index going through every single video. All of these videos, by the way, will be posted on the website eventually. These are the 1002 videos that are yet to be posted. But in every single video, I put all of the text in. I put all of the charts, all of the detailed information. Sometimes the bad jokes go in here. I try not to put too many of those. But they're all part of these course notes. These course notes, by the way, 50 pages long just for the 220-1002 exam. So they're pretty extensive. These are the biggest course notes for the A+ exam that I've ever created. They're so big, they're two separate sets now, for the 1001 and the 1002. They're just enormous. There's quite a bit there. If you want to learn more about those, you can download the PDF version right now by going to professormesser.com, or excuse me, professormesser.link/1000notes. Or you can go to professormesser.com. There are links on the main page and links in the menus to get you to the course notes. There's also a physical version of the course notes available. Some people like digital, some people like physical. It's exactly the same course notes, but just in a physical form. Costs a little bit more because they have to be printed out and mailed to you. But some people who like to have a physical piece of paper, this is high quality, color output, nice pages, perfect bound like a paperback book might be. But if you get the physical version, I also give you the digital version for free. So the moment you order this, you do have to wait for it to get mailed to you, but you can immediately download and use the digital version right now. So there's plenty in here that you could pull from. If you want to know more about that, professormesser.com.link/1000notes. By the way, it's a great way to support the site. Some people say, I want to donate. Well, I don't take donations. I want to give you something for your hard-earned money, and hopefully this is something you can use to help get you through those last phases of the exam, to get that last bit of information into your brain before you take that exam. Hopefully it's something you can use and be able to take advantage of that. Those of you that have purchased it, thank you so much. Every penny of this goes back to keeping this whole thing going. So I really do appreciate your support there as well. Let's do some more questions. Here's one for you that asks about applications and troubleshooting that. A user states that an application has been unstable for the past couple of weeks. Well, of course, you're only going to be called now, right? Why didn't you call me when it started happening? Well, it's too bad. They didn't call you, and now it's gone on for weeks. Which of these would be the best way to view the problem history over this time frame? And we have some options available to you if you're trying to figure out what this might be. Maybe you have an idea in your head of what it might be. Your options are Task Manager, Performance Monitor, Device Manager, Services, and Reliability Monitor. So you got 5 options there to choose from, all of them real actual Windows technologies. But this is one where we do want to know how to troubleshoot this a little better. So the question again, a user states that an application has been unstable for the past couple of weeks. Which of these would be the best way to view the problem history over this time frame? This is, by the way, one of those questions that you might think, I know exactly where I would go to look at this, and then you look at the available options, and the thing that you would use is not in this list. And most of the time, that's by design. In fact, almost all the time, this is by design, where they're not going to give you perhaps what the first possible option are, but if you look at the question, it asks, which of these would be the best way to view the problem history over this time frame? So for whatever reason, maybe your first option is not something available to you. You only have the choice of these 5 things. Which one would you use? So they're trying to get you to think about more specifically, giving a more constrained set of choices, which one of these fits best with this particular scenario. So make sure you think about what you would choose that. A user states an application has been unstable for the past couple of weeks. Which of these would be the best way to view the problem history over that time frame? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and you can answer that one as well. That does come in handy to know those. I think if you were ever in a scenario where you had to troubleshoot a problem that was happening over a number of weeks, it sure would be nice to be able to find more information very quickly with that. I think a number of you are Googling this one. I can always tell when the question is one where people are having to think, because the number doesn't quite increase quite as quickly as when people are doing that. So hopefully that's one where you're thinking more about that, of what it could possibly be, or what's there. Let's see how we did with this one. I don't think we're going to get any faster answers. You're not going to be able to Google these, by the way. I make them up every month. So every time there's a study group like this, I'm always going through. You're never going to find any of these in there because I make them brand new every time. Let's see how we did. Let's click the How Do We Do button. And we're a little torn on this one. Well, I wouldn't say torn. We have a majority, 55%. 55% of you said performance monitor. 24% of you said reliability monitor. 11% said task manager. And then single digits, 7% said services. And then 2% said device manager. So let's look at these 5 different options and whether they would be really something we could use or not. So let's step through. I'm going to bring up this scenario where we're having this issue. This is a good troubleshooting question that's really trying to get you to think about how to troubleshoot when applications are going bad. When there's an application that has gone wrong, the app stops working. You might get an error message. You might not. The application just might stop. Just disappeared. Was here a second ago, now it's gone. That happens a lot. Or you get a message on your screen saying that whatever the program is stopped responding, and it just sits there and gives you, it's checking for a solution to a problem. Why is it that the Microsoft solution to the problem never seems to actually solve the problem? Now, of course, the thing that I immediately think about, this is a problem that happened over weeks of time. It would be nice to go back in time and look at the log. And that's certainly something you can do. Event log is a very good way to look at detailed log information at a particular date and time. But you have to know the date and time. If you've ever looked through an event log, just the broad, raw event, non-filtered event log, it's enormous. It is huge to be able to go through. So unless you know exactly what you're looking for and exactly the time frame that you're looking for it, the event log may not be the best choice. And as you recall, I didn't give you this option in the different options that I gave you. In those 5 different multiple choice options, that wasn't in there. Well, now we've got another challenge. How could we do this then? In fact, I would argue in this particular scenario, event log would probably still not be the best option, even if I did give you that as one of those possible answers. The one that really makes more sense is reliability monitor. That's what you want to do. Let's have a look at that. We'll bring up my screen so you can see it. Reliability monitor gives you a nice view of historically how applications have been performing. Now, you may have not even heard of this before. You may have thought that was a joke answer, that I made it up, but it's actually a real thing. And it's actually extremely useful to be able to have this here. Ultimately, you may have to reinstall the application, but it all depends on what you're able to get through Reliability Monitor. Here's what Reliability Monitor looks like. You bring up, this is on your Windows machine, by the way. Some people in the chat room saying, what are you talking about? I have no idea what this is. Go to your Windows Start, go to search, look for Reliability Monitor, and it's going to bring up a screen like this, and it's going to show you over the past time frame that you set there how your applications have been running. It will show you when applications have failed, and it will take you immediately to the information associated with that failure. So instead of trying to sift through Event Manager, trying to go through all the event logs, trying to look at all of them, much easier if you just bring up your Reliability Monitor. What this effectively is doing is parsing out your event logs on your computer and just showing you the problems associated with apps. And this can be extremely useful, especially in a scenario like this one, where the application has been unstable for the past couple of weeks. So you're not even, this could be multiple things that are occurring. One crash might be exactly the same crash that's occurring over the last 2 weeks. What if some crashes are not the same thing? What if there are multiple problems that we have to address? It'd be nice if we were able to go to every single one of those instances where the application crashed and be able to look at more information about that particular error. Well, Reliability Monitor does exactly that. A very useful tool. So make sure you're familiar with that. In fact, Reliability Monitor, of course, is in the exam objectives. So you have to know it to be able to use to answer questions on the exam. Make sure you're completely aware of those. Now, 50% of you chose Performance Monitor. And Performance Monitor is very good at giving you metrics, statistics, detailed performance information about what's happening on the computer right now. And if you start it right now, you can keep performance statistics going forward. What you can't do with Performance Monitor is say, go back 2 weeks and tell me how the system was performing over that 2-week period. What it also will not tell you is what happened with your applications during that time frame. Performance Monitor is more about metrics with hardware and how they interact with your operating system. What was your utilization of your CPU like? What was the temperature inside of your computer? How much information was written to your storage devices over that period of time? How much network utilization occurred during that time frame? But it doesn't actually tell you why an application failed. So that's not going to be a really useful one for you to be able to use if you ever try to troubleshoot things that happened in the past. And although 50% of you did choose Performance Monitor, not the right answer for this particular one. 12% of you chose Task Manager. A similar scenario. Task Manager gives you an immediate second-by-second breakdown of exactly the performance of applications that are running on your computer. What it will not tell you is what happened 2 weeks ago. It will tell you what happened right now, and it will tell you exactly what's going on. And it even gives you a little bit of history, certainly not as powerful as Performance Monitor, but it really can't help you with what happened in the past. You've got services. Services, of course, are applications that are running on your system, but there's really no user interface for those applications. They run in the background, if you will. They run behind the scenes. Things like your print spooler, for instance, are a service. So anytime you send a print to your computer and it spools up, behind the scenes, it's spooling that printout and slowly sending it off to your printer or to your print server. So that's not going to help you view anything related to problem histories. And finally, Device Manager, which is very useful for managing your devices, for being able to turn on and turn off devices, for being able to load up new drivers. The interactions between the operating system and the hardware all happens inside of Device Manager. You get to see what's happening right there. You can see interesting statistics about your hardware as well. If you want to see how much power a USB hub is using that is part of your hardware, it will show you that information in Device Manager, for example. But it doesn't tell you anything related to how applications are performing, and it doesn't tell you anything about what happened in the past. So Device Manager would not be your best option there. The only one that really fits here and the best way to view the problem history given these 5 options is Reliability Monitor, option E. So that's the one you want to go with. If you are watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I will give you what CompTIA calls a webinar category CompTIA credit. You can earn 4 of those over a 3-year period. So you have to have 20 CEUs to renew your A+ exam, your A+ certification rather. Only 4 of them can be from a webinar. So you can't watch 20 of my study groups and be renewed. Sorry. You can only watch 4. They will take as part of your word, you telling them that you watched the study group. But what I like to do is send you an email that I digitally sign that says you really did watch the study group. If CompTIA does come back and audit you, you're able to show, no, Professor Messer really said I was there. And the reason he said I was there is what I'm about to tell you. This is the most important part of this. To be able to earn that CEU, here's what you have to do. At the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, there's a Contact Us link that will bring up a form. Make sure you put your name, your email address. I ask you to confirm your email address. And the reason I do that is I'm emailing this back to you. So it's important it gets to the right place. Then on there, it asks for a topic and has a text box for you to put information in. All of these messages come to me. So if there's anything you ever need to ask me about, if there's anything you need to tell me, or if there's anything you want to put into this CEU notice, you're welcome to put it there as well. But somewhere in there, it would help if you put that this was the March 2019 220-1002 A+ study group. I'm already asking for a lot there. But probably the more important thing is in a prominent place in that text box. Try not to hide it within other things. It helps if I can see it pop right up, is the words reliability monitor. Those are your super secret code word clearance text words for the month. Not sure what to call those. Those are the things you have to put in there so that I know you must have watched this study group. So again, top or the bottom of my site, go to click the Contact Us link, put your name, your email address. Helps if you tell me that it's the March 2019 220-1002 A+ study group. And somewhere in that box, put the words reliability monitor. If that's all you want to put in the box, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to write a message or anything else in there. I know what it's about. I understand exactly what you're telling me. You're able to put that in there. You can, of course, say this is for CEU credit. It doesn't matter. I know if you're sending me just a message that says reliability monitor, I have figured it out. I'm on it. I got it. It usually takes me about a week to turn these around. So don't be concerned if you don't see a response back. Sometimes it takes me a little bit longer than a week. So please be patient with me. But I will go through these and send you back a digitally signed email that says you must have watched this because you knew the super secret code word text message content thing of reliability monitor. Thank you for watching. I'm glad to give you that CEU. Let's do another question. We have time for another one. This question is definitely a 220-1002 question because it's asking about scripting. Let's learn about scripting, shall we? In fact, the question asks, which of the following would best describe this script? Which of the following would best describe this script? Those of you that are listening on the podcast or the audio-only version, unfortunately, this is more of a visual daily double. This isn't going to help you very much because you can't see the script. And I'm not going to tell you the script. I'm not going to spell it out because it would just sound really ridiculous. But on the screen is a script. And if you have a chance to go back and look at the video replay, you'll be able to see what this script looks like. And what I'm asking you is, what best describes this script? And I have some options here that say PowerShell commandlet, a shell script, a Python script, JavaScript, or Windows batch file. Some of you in the chat room are wondering, why are you talking about scripts? What in the world does this have to do with the 220-1002? And I would ask you to turn to the last page of your hymnals, and you will find the last set of objectives on that list is knowing about scripts. It's a brand new set of topics on the 220-1002 exam. So make sure you know in the exam objectives where to find those. And some people in the chat room going, oh, I'm so glad I'm doing the 902 exam. Now, you don't have to know how to script to be able to get through the 220-1002. That's not what they're asking you to be able to do. You don't have to know how to do any scripting. You don't have to know a lot of detail about scripting, but you do have to be able to recognize scripts that are different. What is the difference between these scripts? If somebody handed you a script, you should know how that runs. What do you use to run that script? And so that's why I put that script on the screen so you could have a look at it. So for those of you familiar with these, please don't give me any hints or any messages in the chat room. This is one where you're going to want to go to professormesser.com/QA. And maybe if you don't know, and this might absolutely be the option for you, take a guess. I will tell you on your actual exam, what we know of the exam grading is you're not penalized for getting a question wrong. In other words, if you answer and the question is not correct, they don't take points away from you that you've already earned earlier on. Instead, you just don't get any points. Well, that means you can guess for free. There's no penalty for guessing. So if you're looking at this and you think you sort of know what it could be, take a guess. Maybe it's an educated guess, or maybe it's a random guess. But in either case, never, never, never leave a question blank. Even if you're going through it the first time and you're just not quite sure and you're going to flag it and come back to it later, mark something. Mark your best possible guess for that one, because you don't want to get to the end of this and submit your exam and you forgot to answer some of the questions. Now, the exam's very good at telling you, hey, you didn't answer these. Are you okay with that? Okay, we're submitting. Are you sure you want to submit it? It does ask you a couple of times. So make sure that you're familiar with this. Which one of these would best describe this script? Let's see how well you did with scripting. So how do we do? We're all over the place. So for those of you listening in, those of you watching, you see already. Those of you listening in, we have probably two possible answers. We're tied for first between a shell script and JavaScript, and we're sort of tied for second between a PowerShell commandlet, a Python script, and a Windows batch file with 18, 12, and 12% respectively. So shell script got 31%, JavaScript got 26%. Since they're so close, I'm going to go with the one that is the highest. So shell script got 31% of this. So that's the one we're going to go with, even though JavaScript was only 4 percentage points behind. Let's look at this script and see what this is all about as we break down for you a shell script. That's what this script is. A shell script is a script that runs in a shell. That's why we call it a shell script. The shell is the command line that you have chosen to use in your Linux service or your Linux front end. So at the command line of Linux, this is one of the great things about Linux is you can choose and customize all kinds of things about Linux, including what your command line runs as. So if you're running a command line using bash, which is a Linux command line format, this is a shell script that runs in a bash shell. And you can see the first part of the script was a £sign and an exclamation mark. So this would be a hash bang. This is what signifies that what's coming next is a type of script, and what's right after that is the type of script, which is /bin/bash. So it's effectively saying run this script as a bash shell script. Bash shell script. See how easy this is to say and do. Everything that comes after this is the script itself. Now, you don't necessarily have to understand what this script is doing. That's not important. What's important is that you can look at the very beginning of the script and see what type of script is that? Where would you expect this script to run? And by looking at that and seeing the /bin/bash, you should immediately start thinking, okay, that's a shell script for a Linux machine. That's where that's going to run. Technically, it could run in a Mac OS device as well. That's certainly viable if that's one of the options. The ones I gave you of the 5 different options, if it's running a Mac OS, it's still a shell script. So the option B, 32% of you, if we go with not a majority, but at least the largest number here, 32% did get that absolutely right. Third of you, it is shell script. Well done with that. That's where that came from. That's where we got that option from. Well, 27% said JavaScript. And although this script has things in it that are very similar to JavaScript, which is, by the way, different than Java. JavaScript and Java, 2 different things. JavaScript is a scripting language used in browsers. This is not a JavaScript, though. You should be able to look at the script and see, nope, not right with that one. We've got 17% said it's a PowerShell commandlet. PowerShell, again, that word shell comes up. PowerShell is a shell for Windows. In Windows 10, it's one that's available. You can download it for other versions of Windows. PowerShell is a scripting language that allows you to control and manage many aspects of Windows. If you're a Windows administrator, you're probably using PowerShell. It's an extremely powerful shell. It allows you to turn on and off all kinds of different Windows functions, especially interact with the registry, interact with your services, interact with core pieces of the operating system that normally you just can't do from a normal command line in Windows. Let's see, 12% chose Python script. You should be able to look at the script itself, look at the structure of the script and know, okay, that's not Python. Nope, that's not a good one. And Windows batch file, we can tell by the script with the /bin/bash. That bash shell has nothing to do with Windows. Windows batch files have a different format, a different structure, a different syntax. It's not one there either. Now, in my video, which will be coming out soon, for the 221002 section 4.8 of your exam objectives, I have a video that's coming out called Scripting, which goes through all of these script types. So you can see what the key pieces are of each one of those script types. Find some key identifiers that would tell you, oh, that's JavaScript. Oh, that's a bash script. That's PowerShell. Should be able to see those things pop up and be able to get a feel for what those look like. So this was one that was a little bit more complex to go through, but the 33% of you, at least the largest number of people voting, did get that one right. It is indeed, there we go, it is indeed a shell script. Well done with that. Well, all of these questions today, by the way, came directly from the exam objectives. I mentioned earlier that that shell script question came from the exam objectives. Make sure you get your hands on these, by the way. If you don't have these, go get them. I have a redirect that takes you right to the CompTIA website. If you go to professormesser.com/objectives, that's how important they are. I will send you over to the right page. You don't even have to look for it. You could, of course, go to the Google machine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. First link's going to take you there. Make sure you get those. They make a great checklist. They tell you everything you need to know for the exam. So make sure you become familiar with what's in that objective list. It's going to be extremely important for you when you walk into that exam room that you know everything that's on that list, including scripting, as it turns out, for all of these. Well, we've come to the end of an hour of Q&A. Stick around for the next hour. I got open phone lines, open chat room questions. People are asking questions already, saying, how can I get an IT job with no experience? I'll give you some tips when we talk in the after show. Well, I'll open up the phone lines. You can even call if you'd like. But we do one of these study groups or more of these every month. There are 2 A+ study groups every month. You can come back in April 2nd and 4th. April 2nd is the 220-1001. April 4th is the 220-1002. We've got all kinds of events that we've put out there on the calendar. I need to update the calendar for April now that I'm thinking about it. So if you're watching this video and it's after April the 4th and you're wondering, when is the next live event going to be? Just go to professormesser.com/calendars. We'll tell you when it's going to be. Be glad to fill you in on the details. There is, of course, next week, Wednesday of next week is our Network Plus study group. A week after that is our Security Plus study group. So we try to do one of these every month or every week or so. I try to get a week off at the end of the month, but that gives you an idea of when those events are going to be. We'd love to have you come back, and we'll do another one of these with all new questions. It's different every month. I don't just replay the same thing over and over again. Some people have asked that before. Is it just the same questions? No. I make up all new questions every month. You've never seen these questions before. They've never been published. I make them just for these study groups, so you'll be able to find those. Of course, I have a new question for you every day on Twitter. Another one that's not seen anywhere else, all brand new every day. World premiere every day on Twitter. Don't forget about subscribing on YouTube. It really does help quite a bit, and I appreciate your support there. My course notes available at professormesser.link/1000 notes or from the links that are on the homepage and the pull-down menus of the Professor Messer website. And of course, we'd love to have you back here. Check the calendar for the next event. Stick around for the next hour. We got open phone lines. You can ask me anything you'd like. It can be about A+, it can be about networking, it can be about security, it could be about life, whatever you'd like to talk about. Be glad to do it. Thanks for joining us this time. We will see you next time on the A+ Study Group. let's have a look at bringing up the phone lines. Takes me just a moment, everyone, to click a few things on my screen. Make sure that I can see the shows. Make sure that I can host a show. Clicking this as we go. Make sure that I can start a show so that you could even call in if you wanted to. Or if you don't, I'll take questions from the chat room too. You don't even have to call to be able to do that. Let me call in though, because that's how I get everything going. So if you can bear with me just a moment, I will click on my Skype. That hour did go fast. I'm with the chat room. That flew right by. So it beep, beep, beep. It answers this. And then I type in a few numbers on my screen and the pound sign.
Enter your...
And then I do this one. And then it says,
welcome.
Oh, good. Everything works. I like it when it says welcome to get this going. So this is our after show. You're welcome to ask me anything about anything. It can be about the A+. It doesn't have to be about the A+. It could be about IT. It doesn't have to be about IT. It could be about life in general. It could be about whatever game I'm playing on the Xbox right now or not playing on the Xbox right now, as it turns out. There's a lot going on in my world right now. So you never know what's going to go on. If you would like to join us, join in, you're more than welcome to give me a call. The number in the continental United States is a toll-free number, 855-785-RJ45. There's also the ability to call from Skype for free anywhere in the world. Since this is a toll-free number, I will pay for the Skype call. You type in +1 855-785-7545, and I will be able to take your Skype call. You're welcome to do that as well. Either way is fine. Or we can ask questions in the chat room, which is what some people were asking already. So some people, let's talk about the question we had at the end of the study group, which was, I don't have any practical experience. I'm maybe getting a certification. Maybe I don't even have a certification yet. How do I get a job in IT? This is, of course, the problem that everyone has with any type of job in any vertical market. If you're going into transportation, if you're going into hospitality, if you're going into business, if you're going into anything, your problem is how do you get that first job? And the answers are many and varied to be able to do that. The real key, I think, for almost anyone is you have to try concentrating on putting as many different things on your resume as possible. Your CV should have not just certifications. You should talk about your formal education. You should talk about maybe things that you've done with technology that have been internships or volunteer that you have done. A lot of places need volunteers that understand computers. Maybe you're talking about your home lab. There's something absolutely free you can do, by the way, that teaches you a lot about this technology. It is immediately available for free on the internet. And yet I don't see a lot of people really taking advantage of this, which is set up your own home lab, run your own Windows system, set up your own Windows server. There are evaluation versions of Windows Server that you can download directly from Microsoft, and you can spin up an entire server, which is exactly, by the way, the same software that every employer is running in their Windows data center, and you can run that at home. You run it as a virtual machine. You don't even need a separate piece of hardware. As long as you have enough storage space on your storage device, as long as you have enough memory in your computer, you might have to get a memory upgrade, so there may be some cost associated with doing this. But as long as you do that, you've now got everything you need to run an enterprise Windows server instance in your home on your computer. So if you're looking at doing more with computers, we're looking at doing more with technology, that's one thing you can do. Maybe do a similar thing for networking. Maybe set up a pfSense, which is a firewall, a free firewall that you can, again, run as a VM or run on a separate machine. Maybe you can set it up and run an IPS like Snort. Sometimes you can find a VM that's got both pfSense and Snort running at the same time on the same instance so that it can go through the firewall, then go through the IPS, and you'll see if there's anything there that you can block. It's remarkable, by the way, What you will see when you first set up a firewall, because you'll start to see all the traffic flows going by, and many of these firewalls can also identify applications or at the minimum port numbers. And then you can also see if any malicious software might be going through that an IPS might pick up. So those are things also that might help you with those, that can also bring you down to the level of getting into the technology. So that, by the way, when you go in to sit in those meetings, somebody's bringing you in on an interview. We looked at your resume. You seem to have some knowledge in Windows Server. You seem to have done some things with networking. I see that you did some volunteer work where you kept people's antivirus updated at this particular local organization. Tell us what you're doing with Windows Server. Go. And then you need a story. So don't just think about Windows Server. Talk about your installation process with Windows Server. What problems did you run into? How did you resolve those problems that you ran into? And now looking back, how would you do it differently? That's 5-10 minutes of you talking right there. And it's you just describing how things went during that process. Once you got it up and running, did you build out an Active Directory infrastructure? What did you put in Active Directory? Did you put everybody in your house? Did they put them in different groups? Did you add your printers? Did you add your computers? Did you manage a system? Did you set up one computer in your network so that it did not have certain access, or you limited or you managed that device remotely? Those are really useful things to do. Because every single one of those, by the way, you're not going to do right the first time. You're going to do it right the third or fourth time. But that first or second time when you ran into problems, there's your story about troubleshooting. It's nice. The people that you're talking to, it's nice when you can tell them what they want to hear. And they want to hear times when you've run into a technical problem and how you resolved it. They're not even necessarily most interested in knowing if you're running the same version of Windows Server that they're running, if you're running the same firewall that they're running, because they know that all of these troubleshooting tasks are all the same logical process regardless of what the software is. So that becomes handy. I'll link to the server evaluation. If you look for Windows Server evaluation, you're certain to come across the page. One of the most popular pages out there on Microsoft's website, I am sure, to be able to do that. So that's one of those things to deal with. There's some other questions coming up about these jobs and what people think these jobs are, but I'm going to tell you that you may be thinking differently about what a help desk position actually is. So let's do that. Let's answer that question now. I was going to go to a call. I see they dropped off. So let's go to that call. I think this will be a useful one to go through. Let me fix what I'm seeing on the screen here. One of the things that I often will see, and this comes in quite a bit, is that people say, I love the technology. I like working with these computers. I like figuring out these issues. I like troubleshooting the problems. I just cannot see myself sitting in a sea of people, this enormous room of 100 people. It's like those commercials where it just goes back, 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 back. All you see are people sitting in cubes. Everybody has the headset on, and they're all having to take phone calls about changing people's passwords. Well, there are certainly jobs like that in the world. And I have visited with customers who worked as a help desk for a telecommunications company. And as you can imagine, telecommunications companies have numerous help desks, some for their end users, some for their corporate users, so some for their techs that are in the field. There's different levels there. And of course, there are many people taking those phone calls, but it's usually in a comfortable corporate environment. You're usually around other knowledgeable people doing what you're doing. There's not a ton of stress associated with those. When people think about call centers, those aren't really tech support centers most often. A call center of people taking your phone calls because they're taking orders on an 800 number of something that you're trying to order off the television. That's not usually what a help desk looks like. Even help desks at some of these call centers, you're dealing with people that are answering the phone that have a certain knowledge level. So there are fewer of you already. There's not going to be a sea of people. Now, are the things you'll be asked of doing in these environments, are they sometimes tedious? Oh, yes. There will people be calling you and saying, I can't remember my password, and you have to take them down the path of fixing their password. Those calls do happen. But sometimes it's a little bit different. When somebody has an odd problem with an application that has been failing every 2 weeks, and you now have to resolve why this application keeps failing over and over and over again. In my experience, one of my first jobs was a break fix, really more delivery replacement kind of technician. It was a field technician job. I was working for a computer company in South Miami, and my job was to go to customers that have received a computer from us. It was usually a corporate customer or state and local government customer. The computer's in the box. They had contracted with us for me to show up, take the computer out of the box, put it on the desk, plug it in, and it works. And then I go away. Sometimes that job was me upgrading memory in a system that was already there. Maybe it was upgrading the storage device in a system that was already there. Sometimes it was troubleshooting a monitor that was bad. Is the monitor bad, or were the pins just bent when they pushed the VGA connector in? That happens sometimes. I walk in, the computer screen is all green. They're saying it's a brand new computer screen. It's a brand new monitor. It's busted. I pull out the connector and I look at it, and the pins were squished together. I'm not even sure how they managed to get it plugged in, but they did. So I took a little tiny screwdriver, straightened the pins out, plugged it in. Monitor was working, out of there in 5 minutes. Those are things that are nothing like sitting in a room with a headset on trying to get this done. When I moved from that job, my next job was a corporate help desk. Wore a tie every day, and a help desk. There was a room of cubes, but there were 15 or 20 of us. It was for an insurance company. And when you were talking with people and solving problems, you were getting up from your desk, you were going to their desk. You were sitting next to them. You were seeing what they were seeing on the screen. You were writing down what they were saying about their problems. You were then trying to figure out how to solve those issues. So it's not always someone stuck on a phone answering customer calls. Sometimes you have to get through that process, though, to go the next level. Because after I finished at that corporate help desk, my next job was one where I was behind the scenes setting up the servers. And then at that point moved into networking behind the scenes. So you're not, especially in networking, you're not really interacting with an end user so much as you are building out the whole infrastructure that all of your users are connecting to. But one of the things that you will find is that if you're on that help desk and you're taking those calls and you're solving the application problems and you're dealing with the network issues, you get to know the application people, you get to know the server people, you get to know the networking people. And then you can ask them, hey, if I'm interested in doing what you're doing, what do I need to do here? What do I need to know? What would you like? What knowledge do you need from me? Can I spend some time when you're coming in this weekend working on this project? Can I come in and just shadow you? Do you need an extra set of hands to help rack things? Do you need somebody to help run cables? You know, those are investments that you can make into your future, that not only you're learning something and you're going to be able to use that learning throughout your entire IT career, but they're going to see that you're interested in learning it. And very often you'll be the first one when a job opens up. They'll stop by your desk and say, hey, are you still interested in networking? Because we have an opportunity for you you might be interested in. And that changes now your direction. You would never get there unless you were sitting at the help desk to begin with. Some people want to start from, I don't have an IT job and I want to go into IT security. But more often the path is one where you start with that basic troubleshooter, help me out, customer service skills type job, and it moves into something else from there. So as they're saying in the chat room, you got to get that foot in the door. You got to start somewhere. Once you're in and you show some initiative, you're there for work on time, you don't leave early, you're helping out where people need the help, you're making life easier for everybody. That's the kind of person I want to work with. So let's see how we can help you work with all of us that are here. That's my recommendation, by the way, if you're working through those things. Let's go to the phone calls. I've had some calls come in. The 775. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi.
Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? May want to turn off that stream. That echo is gonna bother you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Daniel. I'm calling from Reno, Nevada.
Welcome. What can we do for you?
Well, I was just, it's not a question as such, but I was just calling to thank you for what you do and watching your videos and also starting some more. I got a job, an IT job right now, as in enterprise desktop support.
Nice.
And I can remember that when I went for the interview, I thought they were going to ask very complex questions, but basically it was just troubleshooting. How are you going to troubleshoot a computer that will not start? The first thing, you go to the power and check if it's connected. So once I just said that, they told me to stop. So I've kept on advancing. So right now, I'm doing the network class, and I'm watching your videos, and as well as I want to do the CCNA too. And it's just amazing the way you have a lot of information, and if somebody goes all the way to the higher level instead of looking at that small bit, they're going to miss it, all of it.
It's interesting. You started with, I look to see if it's plugged in, which is the very first answer everyone should be saying when somebody talks about troubleshooting. Is it plugged in? The second, of course, is have you turned it off and back on again? But that first one of is it plugged in has people laugh at that. And so many times when I'm troubleshooting a problem I'm in a big company, I'm with people that have enterprise careers in networking and technology. I'm installing the highest end security technologies in the universe. We're plugging, something's not working, and then we realize we didn't plug something in. That is a great answer when somebody says, how do I help troubleshoot this thing? Now, you mentioned starting with that troubleshooting job, being in that job where you're working on workstations, and you mentioned this change or the move direction into more networking. Is that something that has an opportunity that has arisen at your place of work, or is that an interest of yours that you want to be able to do?
It's going to rise at my place of work, and as you said, by just showing them that I want to learn, they told me that they're going to make an opening for me. They're going to make an opening for me in networking.
Wow!
So they need they wanted me to do the CCNA and make sure that I pass it and all that. So I told them I'm going to do better. I'm going to do the network class because I'm watching your videos as well as I'm studying the CompTIA. So to me, I know I'm going to pass it because the objectives are printed already. I'm going step by step to see what I know, what I don't know. For example, in networking and the CCNA subnetting.
Yep.
I can't wait for that March 13th so that I can watch your videos again. But there are things that we always think that it's far out there. It's not far out there. It's just right here. Even if you don't know about CompTIA, if you don't know about A+, just go ahead and get the basics and then be hands-on. Just put up that server, just like you said, or your computer. Just do the scripting, do whatever you need to do so that you can reach there.
So true. So true. Well, it's good coming from me. It's even better coming from you because you're living it right now, and you're telling everybody who's listening, yes, this is the way to do it. It's remarkable how just a little bit of application of you going out and putting yourself out there can really reap a number of benefits to you. That's a fantastic story. I want to appreciate your call.
Thank you so very much.
Take care. That's a great story for everyone to go with, is that it does seem like it's so far away. It does seem like it's so difficult to be able to get to that point. But there's some very, very key important things that allow you to get to that point. I have a brother-in-law. He is in not a technology type of environment. He works as an actor. So he's in New York City, and he is someone he's wanted to act forever. He's now getting all these positions acting on some of these shows that are on network television. And he says, he's now at a point in his life where he shows up on time. He He's kind of like me. He's finally gotten to a point where he can be responsible. There were times in my life I was perhaps not as responsible, but now he shows up on time whenever they need him to be there. He's there. If they need him to do something, he does it. He's happy to do it. He's enjoying his job and what he's doing, and they keep calling him back, and they keep saying, "Well, we're calling you back because you're here on time, because you do what we need you to do. You seem to like it." So of course we're going to call you back. And he thought that was it. That's what you have to do. It turns out that's what you have to do. That's not just in acting. That's really any job you go to. Just doing that part gets you a huge amount of the way. And then on top of that, add your own interest. Say, I'm really interested in what you're doing with that. I'm really interested in the networking we're doing here. How can I learn more of that? What do I need to learn to do what you're doing? People love to ask you that, give you answer that, by the way. So very important to have that there. Let's go back to the phone lines. 713 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Robert. I'm calling from Dallas.
Welcome, Robert. What can we do for you?
Well, so I guess I want to ask one of those, like, where do I kind of go with my life type of questions, if that's all right.
Oh, I have plenty of options. So let's see where we're going.
Okay, cool. So a little bit of background. For the last almost year and a half, I was studying for the CCNA, and I thought I was ready. I went ahead and I scheduled my exam, and I failed the exam. So, well, I didn't want to give up. I really like networking. So I scheduled another exam 3 months later. Failed it again.
Which specific, sorry to interrupt, which specific exam were you taking?
ICND 1.
Okay. Continue.
Okay. So, I'm feeling a little down and out, but I do want to keep going down this track if I can. So someone mentions to me that you can try the Network Plus. It's significantly easier. But after looking through the A Plus, I wrote it off for the longest time just because, it doesn't deal a lot with networking. But after looking into it, it kind of does. And there's like a little bit of information in there where I think I could definitely benefit from. But essentially what I'm asking is, like, with that having happened and a little bit of background in IT, not a whole lot, do you think the A Plus is probably the way to go at this point?
Well, I'm going to answer this by giving you more questions so that we're going to turn this around a little bit. And instead of figuring out what do I do first, what do I do second, what do I do third, I need to know where we're heading. So what is it that we would like to get to, or what, not even where we want to get to, what do you want the next step to be in your career as it's associated with technology? Is there a particular job you're interested in? Is there a particular company you're interested in? Is there a particular type of technology you're interested in? Which one of those, or what's driving you down the road to take these certifications?
Okay. Well, the networking track sounds cool, just because it's very complicated. It's very out there. And if I did have, say, a CCNA, a CCNP, or a CCIE, I could kind of be in a position to where I'll be the guy that everybody goes to. And that just sounds really, really interesting to me.
There's a good combo there. It's not only a knowledgeable thing, but there's also people who know those types of things get paid very well. So there's a nice 1-2 there.
Right. I guess really to kind of maybe career security, someplace I think I can spend a lot of time in and not get bored very easily, and there are always going to be work to do something like that, and I'm always going to be able to do that kind of work.
Yeah, it's true as well. Are there particular organizations in your geographical area that have positions like that? Do you know anyone who works at companies that are doing this type of job, or is this just a type of technology that you've had an interest in and have seen other people, maybe outside the scope or on the internet doing things like this?
Definitely the latter. Definitely the latter. I spent a lot of time watching Network Chuck. I don't know if you know Ryan, Benny, great guys. And I mean, after watching enough of them, seeing the type of content that comes out with the CCNA, I just felt like that was just a really interesting thing to be messing with.
And I, first, as someone who went down the road of getting deep into networking at the packet level, designing enterprise networks, I am right there with you. I feel exactly the same way about networking. It was one of the best types of jobs I could have ever hoped to have for my interest and what I was doing. So let's then back up a little bit and say, and try to figure out the best strategy then to get you into that particular position. Everybody's path is going to be different. So I can give you an idea of where many people go, but you may find other options available. You mentioned that you were in, was it the Dallas area?
Yes.
So already you're in a very good geography. You're in a very good part of the world to do networking. There are many, obviously enormous companies in the Dallas area. There are technology companies. There are service providers. There is medical. There is transportation. Anything you would want to do, there seems to be companies doing something like that from both sides of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, from Fort Worth to Plano down to, you've got just tons of options available there. And because of that, there are a number of different technology groups in your area. There is, I'll be sure, I don't know for certain, but I would bet there is a Cisco user group in your area. I'm probably sure there's other technology groups in your area from Microsoft, probably other more specific ones like Palo Alto Networks or Checkpoint on the security side. There's probably a VMware user group. So you've got IT user groups in your area that focus on these types of things. The interesting part about that is the people that go to those user group meetings are people that already have these jobs at these big companies. And there are also people who are constantly looking for people to hire. So this is kind of a long tail. It's not long tail as in T-A-L-E, but a T-A-I-L. This is a long path, a long strategy for getting more involved in the technology groups in your area. As it turns out, technology people are a small group. They're a pretty tight-knit group. They are usually, when you work in a particular area, you know the other people in your area. So there's an advantage to getting to know those people. Not only an advantage for you because you may be able to find a job opening that they might have, but they're looking for good people as well. This is a two-way street. This is not, you're not trying to sneak around into somebody's place and suddenly get a job. You're trying to build professional relationships where you can both learn and grow from each other. And these relationships will last you your entire career. This is just one way to get those relationships quick jump-started. If you don't have a LinkedIn, make sure you create a LinkedIn account. Make sure you go to some of these user group meetings and meet these people. Don't just go to the meeting. Hey, I went to the meeting. Well, I'm done now. That's not why you're there. You're there to actually meet these people. Hi, my name is. Who are you? Where do you work? All I know what do you guys do? I've heard of your company before. Yes, here's my position. I'm working on a networking career. I'm very interested in doing this. How do your networking people get involved or get a job at your company? What are your hiring managers looking for network people? And I've mentioned this in other study groups, by the way, that the people that are at those companies, in almost every single case, have a bonus available to them if they bring someone in from the outside who is hired. So it's a finder's fee that they get. And so you'll find most people, before you even have a chance to offer it, they'll say, oh, can you send me your resume? Can you send me your contact information? Can I get on your LinkedIn to keep up with what you've been doing? Because if you give them your resume, they give your resume to HR, they get credit if you get hired there. And then if you stay there a certain number of months, they get some money in their paycheck. So again, they love meeting new people that they've never met before, where there's a potential that they can make money. I know many people that I've worked with are like librarians with the number of resumes they collect. I don't even know where they're getting all these from, but every person they meet, they don't know, hey, can you send me your resume? I'll put your resume in. And they just have this enormous pile of resumes. They're sort of their internal resume keeper, and they hand those off to HR, and then they get credit if you happen to get hired. But you're also meeting these people, and you're going to find these people are there in this geographical area. They may be at this company today. They're going to be at another company tomorrow. They may end up at another company, and suddenly they have to hire 10 people. Where are they going to find all these people from? These types of things happen for many different reasons. It's good to be top of mind with that. The other thing I'll mention is it's good to do some research on what are the networking groups, maybe entry-level networking jobs in these particular organizations in the Dallas area. What are they looking for? Are they looking for Network Plus? Are they looking for CCNA? Are they looking for someone who just got their CCENT? Are they looking for someone with no networking experience, which is a strategy some companies use because they can pay you less. So they'll pay you less to get in the door, and we'll train you as you go. Other companies have a completely different philosophy. They want you knowledgeable. They want your CCNA, and they want to know that you know how to manage a switch and router when you walk in the door. Other companies may not hire anybody from the outside to start an entry-level networking. It's a relatively important position. It's one where everybody's company is running on the network, so they may want to hire people from within that are on their help desk. As we were talking earlier with the earlier callers, they want to hire people they already know, who have already on their help desk. They know their personality. They know they're going to be here at work every day. They don't seem to have any faults with working with other people in the organization. They seem to be technically knowledgeable, and they seem to be interested in networking. Now we're going to hire from our help desk. And hiring from within is obviously an easy one for many organizations, and it's a low-risk hire. So when you move up to other organizations, you'll find this. And lastly, let me tell you, as we're sort of mentioning this relationship thing, in my career working in IT, I've worked in field tech, I've worked in corporate help desk, I've worked in networking, I worked for vendors that had networking products, I've worked for vendors that had security products. And so I've been in technical marketing, I've been the manager of SEs. So I've had about 15 different jobs in my career, literally 15 different titles that I could probably point to as this path took me along these number of years. The first job I ever got, I didn't know anybody who was there. This was prior to the internet existing, of course, because I'm an old guy, but I didn't know anybody there. They came along, they hired me. Somehow I got hired at this place. But every other job I got after that point, I knew somebody who worked there. That's 14 jobs moving up the scale, getting more complex jobs as I went. I had a relationship with somebody. It may not have been the hiring manager. It may not have even been somebody in the department where I was working. I could have known somebody in HR or marketing or management, but they knew me. And I could say when I walked in, oh, sure, I knew Kevin. I knew Fred. I knew Ethel. I knew all of these people as I was walking in who work here. Oh, I know Fred. Sure. You know Fred? How do you know Fred? Oh, I know him from the user group. I know him from the work we did when I was volunteering. I knew him from, it could even be a different thing. I knew him from the gym. You know, that's a completely reasonable relationship that you could say, yeah, I know somebody. And people like to hire people they know and people they can trust. So don't dismiss those business relationships. The people networking is almost going to be as important to you as the digital networking of the switches and the routers. So I would recommend you take a step back and maybe do a little research, a little recon, if you will. Try to see if you can find the people in your geography that are doing this kind of thing and do what they're doing. Find out what they need. You may be overreaching a bit. You may find that if you're not doing anything with technology, CCNA or even CCENT may be a bit of an overreach. You may find some hiring managers might not want to hire you because you have what they perceive as a more complex certification, and they're just trying to fit somebody in at an entry-level position. People sometimes miss the fact that overqualification is an absolutely valid, it's an absolutely thing you should be concerned about. So when you find a job that you're going in as, you need to perfectly fit what they're looking for. You never want to overreach or tell somebody you know more than what they want you to know, because they're going to realize very quick, well, if you know that much about networking, you're going to be bored to death trying to manage people's troubleshooting problems with this application. We'll find somebody who's a better fit. So that's another thing to think about, and it's worth maybe doing a little bit more research on the sites that have resumes, on the sites the sales the career builders of the world, the Dice, the Indeeds. Find those different sites, do a bunch of recon in your area, see what they're looking for, and then see how you can get your foot in the door. And as we mentioned earlier, you may be getting your foot in the door on something you were not even expecting, and that leads to networking, and that leads to enterprise networking fields. It leads to security, or it leads to whatever the next thing's going to be. So that's a long answer and a sort of a multifaceted answer for you, but maybe that can give you some ideas of what you can do to kind of jumpstart this thing and get your foot in the door.
Okay. You said the Cisco user group, these are the people I should be looking for.
If you're interested in networking and knowing networking people, that's where they're hanging out. Cisco is still a king when it comes to networking. Even if someone's not primarily Cisco, they like to attend the Cisco user groups because they talk about a lot of networking technology there, whether it's Cisco or otherwise. So those are great places to meet people.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Professor. I'm actually on my lunch break right now. I just saw you on. I decided to call you, but I have to go now.
Thank
Robert.
you
for answering me.
I appreciate the call. Best of luck. That's always a challenge, getting in the door, getting your foot in the door. People in the chat room are agreeing the face-to-face, the social networking aspect. We tend to have this, and I don't know whether it's something we do ourselves or whether we put it on ourselves, but people think that technical people are some type of social outcast for some reason. You always see it in media. You always see it on television. I'm the nerd. Hello, hi. I don't know how to talk to people, but that doesn't exist. That's not real. If you want to find the technical people and you're at a conference, you go to the bar. We're there drinking beer and talking stories. Some of the stories are technical stories. I get it. Some people think, oh, he's talking about dynamic routing again, talking about that OSPF implementation. But there's funny stories if you know about OSPF implementations and the problems that go wrong. Oh, he's talking about that story with AT&T again and the wide area network. Those are funny stories to other technical people. But these are people that are like any of your neighbors. So it's really weird that there's this odd, let's make fun of them because they're social outcasts, when in reality, everybody I've ever met in technology is a perfectly social, interesting individual. So not really sure why that keeps, maybe people think it's funny and it's worth throwing stones at. But us in the industry, we have a broad and diverse set of folks that are really interested in other people. And it's very simple to walk up to somebody and go, hey, what's your name? Hi, I'm James. What do you do? Why are you here? This is my first time here at this user group. I've never been in this facility before. This is amazing. Where do you work here? Do you work somewhere else? What do you do? People like to talk about that. Did you see the pizza? That's let me grab a drink. Blah blah blah. It's easy to do. Let's go back to calls. You folks have been holding forever. Thank you, 615. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yes, I'm calling from Texas.
Welcome. What can we do for you?
I want to ask you if you play GTA 5.
There's obviously a problem there in Texas, so we'll have to figure out what's going on there. But we got more people holding. Thank you for holding for so long. 501. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi there, Professor Messer. My name's Brandon, and I'm calling from Arkansas.
Welcome, Brandon. What can we do for you?
Wow. Let me first start by saying it is so cool to actually be talking to you. You're like essentially a celebrity in the IT world.
Well, don't let Mrs. Professor Messer hear that, or she'll bring me right back down again. Don't worry. I have to take out the garbage once we're done here, so it's not quite as glamorous as you might think. What can we do for you?
Right. Well, I'm calling because, I'm sort of new to the IT field, and I'm, just trying to pave my way out into it because I have a real passion for IT, and I know I want to make a career out of it. And so I've already taken a little bit of initiative. I've been using so many online resources such as Cybrary and
Great.
Black Ops hacking and et cetera.
Nice.
And, there's numerous different types of videos on YouTube. And as far as I'm concerned, I've got my foot in the door. I had an interview this week with a bank for an IT help desk position. It'll be my first actual IT kind of career type job. And fingers crossed that, they like me and I get a call back tomorrow. But essentially, I guess I'm calling to kind of fact check where I am and see, based off of your knowledge of the field, if I'm going in the right direction. I know you got to get your foot in the door somewhere. And so help desk, stop one. But I want to move on to short-term goal, system admin, and I want to dabble in network plus and security plus to really have a good foundation. But long-term, I want to hack stuff like Marcus from Watch Dogs 2.
This is, I think you've got the right idea. And a lot of the things you're talking about doing is a completely reasonable path to get to where you need to go. It sounded like that you had an interest in the security side of things, some of the things you were looking at online, very security related. And it's absolutely reasonable. I come from IT security side of things, so I'm absolutely on board with people getting knowledge in security. It was an incredible part of my career, and an extremely, personally, it was one that was great. Really enjoyed it. But I was no way I was going to start there. I often tell people that if you're ever interested in IT security, you should be as knowledgeable as you can get in IT networking. And people don't often think of security that way. Most of the time we talk about security in our world, in the IT world, people seem to think about penetration testing. That seems to be the sexy part of security. I'm pen testing. I'm breaking in. I'm hacking in. I'm the hacker. I'm finding the holes. I'm identifying the application vulnerabilities. And it is an absolutely fun aspect to security. It's a completely viable position and things that people can make have a lot of fun, make a lot of money in technology, travel the world or sit at home. There's a lot of different options for penetration testing. But it is one that is not a very common job. It is a very, very small percentage of the IT security jobs that are out there. I have intentionally not created content for penetration testing, the Pen Test Plus, or some of the other certifications that are out there, because I feel like the industry kind of overmarkets it a bit. I think the industry, at least the training industry, realizes that it's very sexy and it sells a lot of courses. But the reality is, once you're done getting that certification and you're ready to get the job, it doesn't have quite the broad scope and appeal that many people hoped it did. And as I mentioned, I know people who are penetration testers that love it. The jobs are out there. And if you spend the time and you're invested and you become very knowledgeable in those technologies, it's absolutely a viable career choice. I'm not saying that people shouldn't do it, but I am saying that people need to be more honest about what's available in that particular world. So this is where I don't want to move away too much from your question, because I think your path is exactly what you should be doing, which is get your foot in the door and then follow the path wherever it takes you. Most of the time, where the path is taking you is the path you're most interested in. So getting familiar with operating systems. If you ever want to do penetration testing, you need to know how the operating systems work. You need to know Windows, you need to know Linux, you need to know Mac. If you're interested in penetration testing, you need to know how applications are working with the operating systems. You need to know how the networks are plugged together so that people are able to get across the network and use those applications. And then finally, you need to know the security aspect of it, of how to take advantage of vulnerabilities with those. So almost the penetration testing is almost the culmination of all the things you would ever learn in your career. Finally, you can now start breaking into those things. That's the path I see most people go on. And it sounds like you're working your way down that path, that you want to start at a place and then get down that path. I think that's a perfectly reasonable way to go about doing it.
Right, laying the bricks.
Yeah, you have to start with that somewhere. Now, what you'll find, is that it may not ever get to that point. You may be pulled in a completely different direction. And I'm speaking from my experiences. I started in the industry in that field tech job. I got a job working in an insurance company and really working on workstations. And then finally started seeing people use this Novell NetWare networking technology and got interested in that and kind of wandered over there. And then Novell NetWare went away and it was replaced with Microsoft networking and TCP/IP. And suddenly the whole industry started changing under my feet. And so, of course, I would have never been able back then to say what I really want to do for a living is get on YouTube and stream and create videos and have people learn things that way. That would be what I want to do. I'm going to work towards that. But there was no way for me to do that. The internet didn't even exist. So what you think you want to do in the future may not necessarily be where you get there, or it may absolutely be where you go. But just be ready for the winds of change to blow your boat in a different direction. What I always recommend people do what you enjoy. If you like working with operating systems, work with operating systems. If you like working with networks, go work with some networks. And your interest will change over time. Perfectly fine. IT is an enormous tent. It is a huge tent with plenty of things you could do. Just pick a technology, become an expert in that technology, and you're going to be just fine.
Wow. This has been enchanting. Thank you so much, Professor.
I appreciate the call, Brandon. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a blessed one.
This is one of the benefits, I think, and one of the reasons I did these training series to begin with. This is the reason I wanted to make these training classes to begin with, is the money is there. You can have an absolutely financially stable job. You can have a job you enjoy, and you could just pick any type of technology you want, and you're going to be fine. There's very few types of jobs you can get that are like that. In fact, one of the interesting things about this is you don't have to go into management and still have a financially stable future. You could be technical for your entire career and still make the six figures you need so that there's food on the table and everybody has clothes and you have a house. So I think that's the beauty of technology. You make it what you would like it to be, and it's there just waiting for you when you do that. Let's go to the 513 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Patrick. I'm calling from Ohio.
Welcome.
And, I've passed the 901 exam, but I'm still having problems with the 902. I've done pretty bad with the 902. That's what's holding me up right now.
So the people that always say, no, the 902 is easier, what would you say to them?
I would say, well, there's a lot more definitions you better remember. That's all I could say.
I think you're right.
Remembering Linux and a lot of other things, too. Not really necessarily the application of certain Linux codes, but I would say just remembering the definitions of those codes will go a long way.
I would bet. So what question you have for me?
Basically, the question is now I'm going to be taking that test next week, 902. What I'm trying to do is narrow my focus of study, because I don't want to, because this is going to be a big C I'm going to go back into to try and restudy all this stuff that I missed.
Right.
So what I'm trying to do is eliminate the stuff I already know and concentrate on the stuff that I didn't know as well, at least because I have the after forms that the 902 gave me. What do you think would be the best way to approach that study?
How have you used, or have you had a chance to take advantage of using the exam objectives yet?
That, as far as using the objectives, no, I haven't done that yet. That's really what I've been doing. I've been only paying attention to the what I missed, not necessarily that.
I would use that. That is the way that I have used that in the past when I've taken my exams is not to have it as a PDF file on my computer. I have always printed it out. And maybe that's just old school me and the way I work. but I like to be able to have all of the pages in front of me and be able to see at a glance which things I've crossed through and which things I've circled, or maybe I color code these types of things, because the exam objectives will tell you every single thing you need to know for the exam. They obviously aren't going to ask you everything that's on the exam objectives. You only have 90 questions to be able to do this. But being able to lay all of that out and see it at a glance, I think is a valuable tool that you can use to narrow down, whoa, here's section 3. I circled a lot of things in section 3. Or maybe I circled a lot of things in section 5. So you can start moving down to that section and starting to cross things off of that list. I tell people, if you can take one of those topics on the exam objectives and explain it to someone else, then you probably can cross that one off your list. So I would recommend going through that list and begin crossing them off or circling them or highlighting them or doing whatever you can to try to focus in on the things that you may be able to get a little more familiar with before the time comes up. And this is going to be an odd question, how many books are you using to help study for your 902?
Wow. About 2 or 3.
Okay. No, that's a good answer. Most people will say 1 book, and I will usually say you need at least 2. This is from my personal experience with working with these exams, is that I will read through an entire 901, 902 book. In my time, it was a 601, 602 book. And I finished reading the book, and I was okay with the content. And then I picked up a different book from a different author, from a different publisher, and it was written in a different way that made all of the things that I'd read earlier finally cement themselves into my brain. So I think you're pretty good there. You've got 2 or 3 really good books. You've got at least my video course to reference. The other 2 things I recommend people have is plenty of Q&A and plenty of hands-on. And the Q&A is a more difficult one to get your hands on. The Q&A itself is a challenge to find. There's some good Q&A online. There's much more bad Q&A online. There's some good Q&A books.
Well, I think the quizzes that you have on your site, those do help. Because I've literally seen questions like that or worded somewhat like that on the test.
I will tell you, I don't intentionally write those so that they are emulating the exam, but unfortunately sometimes it sneaks in, and I end up trying to be in that style of some of the things that they do. Yes.
And they're really, I would say, I mean, they're not exactly phrased. I understand.
Right. No, of course not.
As far as the way those and as far as those questions go, they really do help, because I would say out of all the questions that I actually had on the test, there were just about 99% of them were scenario-like questions.
Yep.
I had the 902, so that really helped out. And I think even trying to go through the definitions of different words also helps with that, is even with the abbreviations, because the last third of the test had more abbreviations on it than I was even ready for the last time I took it.
Yeah, they don't tell you, they're not asking you the abbreviation, what the abbreviation means. They're simply using the abbreviation, and they're assuming you know what it means, and then they're asking you other questions where it's applied. That becomes a little bit of a challenge. I wrote my question.
Scenario using that. Yeah, they're using the applied scenario with what that is.
Perfect.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I do.
So I wrote. Okay. I have of course my 901, 902 Q&A books. I'll be creating the same type of thing for the 1000 series. But the last one I mentioned was hands-on. Yeah. So do you have hands-on on Vista, on Windows 7, and on Windows 8?
No, I don't. As far as for Windows 7 and Windows 8, unless I can create a virtualization, that's the only way I know of.
And that's the way I would probably recommend you do it. Fortunately, Microsoft has all of these VMs that are available for you to use for non-production purposes. These are designed for developers that are developing Microsoft applications in Windows, but they also at this website, modern.ie, modern, as in the modern age. Modern.ie, there's a tools pull-down menu there for virtual machines. Microsoft allows you to download Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10 in all of the popular virtualization formats. So you don't have to buy any operating systems. You don't have to get license keys. You don't have to be concerned that you're running software that's not legitimate. Microsoft gives this to you. And I've already looked through the end-user license agreement. The end-user license agreement says if you're using this in a lab environment, you're not using this for production, you can absolutely use these VMs. They're a 90-day VM. After 90 days, they expire. So this is not something you would want to use as a production system, but it's perfect for the A+ exam. So if you don't have access to these operating systems now, that is a perfectly free, perfectly reasonable, and perfectly easy way to download those and then have some hands-on that you could now apply back to this exam. Because I feel like the hands-on creates a muscle memory. It creates this synapse that refires when you're asked these questions on the exam. And that'd be another thing. So those are my 4 tips for you, which are good books, get those videos, get Q&A, and then get plenty of hands-on. If you focus on those 4 areas, I think you're going to be just fine.
Great. Thank you, Doctor. That's all I needed.
All right, you're very welcome. Best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Those are the 4 things I think anybody with any certification exam, those are the 4 things you would hope to have. Now, I've taken certifications exams in the industry, like firewall exams. You may not have had all 4 of those options. There may not be books available. There may not be compilations of Q&A. So you have to do a little more hands-on. You have to do a little more watching people's videos. Website, again, modern.ie. I'm going to stick it in the chat room for those of you looking for that, modern.ie. So you'll be able to find that. And I'll have Lori, who's listening to this and putting in the notes later on. I'll have her add modern.ie to the list of those. So you can find those things later. The 206 area code is next. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? 206. Are you muted, 206? Because I hear nothing.
Hello?
There he is. Hey, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, my name is Matthew. I'm from Seattle.
Welcome, Matthew. What can we do for you?
Yeah, so soon I'll be taking a 6-month cybersecurity analyst sort of program.
Wow.
And at the end of it, they put me into an internship and get me a job in the Seattle area, right?
Nice.
So I guess my main question was, their promise is that in 6 months, it's a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 for 6 months. The promise is that they'll make me not a beginner analyst, but like a full-fledged, like completely capable cybersecurity analyst. I don't know much about IT or cybersecurity in general, so I just want to kind of get some insight from you on how feasible that is, or where I could really just thoughts on that from someone that knows more about it.
All right, Matthew, what did you tell these people that they would give you an internship for 6 months and then put you into full-fledged? Because I think everybody wants this job.
Right. It sounds really good. It sounded a little too good to be true, which is why I've been doing a lot of research and figuring out if it's possible. With the estimated salary, too, it sounded really, really good. So,
well, my first question is this legitimate? Did you actually go on an interview and you talk to people? And it's at a company you know about, and it's a real thing?
Yes, based off of all the research I've done so far, it does seem legitimate. The founder, they've provided. I mean, I've looked up the founder. I looked up the building place that they're going to be at. It seems legit.
It's not all done over text message, and they didn't want you to send them any Bitcoin, right?
No, not yet. No.
Oh, not yet. Okay, we'll just wait for that to happen. Okay, that's good. There are weird things happening out there, so that's obviously a concern for anybody who you're seeing something that seems to be like it's not quite right. But as I've mentioned on other study groups before, we're running out of people in security. This is a significant concern. The needs of the security area in IT have just blown up over the last 4 years. Even before that, I would say probably the last 6 years, 7 years. I remember being in a meeting in a huge conference that was primarily security managers and CIOs and CSOs, which are the central security officers, the central information officers. They are the technology directors of these large companies. And the question was brought up, like, how many people have open headcounts for security people? And every single person in the room held their hands up because there weren't enough heads to go around. There weren't enough people. And even at that time, you could shop yourself around. You could go, I'm looking for a job. Let's ask this company. Let's ask this company. Let's ask this company. And we're going to go to the highest bidder, everybody, because there were a lot of CIOs talking about, I was just about to hire him and somebody stole him away with a higher number. You run into these situations all the time. So it may not be outside the realm of possibility that they would want to bring in, let's try this another way. Let's bring in a bunch of people who aren't completely knowledgeable about security. Let's train them for 6 months. We don't have to pay them a lot because they're not going to know a lot at the very beginning. And then after that, we can now put them into a position where they are knowledgeable because they've been doing this for 6 months. Now, the job description you gave was very nebulous. A security analyst. Have they given you any idea of what the particular job responsibilities are for that position?
No, not much. I mean, the program itself is run by another group of people, and then I believe they have connections with the companies that they've been working with and getting kind of input on what sort of education we should be getting, and then sort of the standard and which they're going to be hiring. Like I said, that's the only bit of information I have so far. I think I'll be finding out more within the next upcoming few weeks.
Wow, you've made quite the leap of faith, Matthew. I will tell you that. So the next thing I guess would be to figure out what is that position? What do they want this particular position to be? What types of things they want you to do? If we're talking generically IT security, it's generally someone who will be managing firewalls, somebody who will be setting up IPsec VPNs to partner sites and other locations, somebody who will be configuring the multi-factor authentication that people use to authenticate to the network, the people that are managing the certificates and the encryption infrastructure for the organization, people that will be implementing IPS technologies, perhaps even into next generation firewalls, connecting those to the internet, wide area network. There's probably routing. There's probably interactions with layer 2 switches. There's probably some type of SIM or reporting component to that where you have to create reports on these things. It's not I guess my point of saying this, it's not an entry-level position in most cases. And I mentioned earlier, most of the time, the people you're putting into security are people who are coming from the network side because there's such a networking component to it. The thing that I would look for then is to see, are they teaching you a lot of networking? Are they teaching you pure security? What is this really going to be? It's an intriguing story. It's an intriguing thing that you've gotten yourself into, Matthew. I can't wait to hear the rest of this story. Let me try to at least answer your question without having any information about this job whatsoever other than the title. What would I recommend you do? And what I would recommend you do is to get some hands-on as soon as you can. I mentioned earlier in the study group, loading up and running your own pfSense firewall. I would absolutely recommend you do this. And most of the time you can find a pre-built VM that you can simply load up as a virtual machine. Usually it has both pfSense and Snort as an intrusion prevention system, all built into the same thing. That is a great thing to get up and running. If you can get it up and running on a separate piece of hardware and use that as a separate individual firewall, set it up so that it's on your internet connection, maybe run your production or your home traffic through it, be able to look at the logs and understand what you're seeing, see if you can correlate what you did in Discord versus what you're seeing in the logs on the firewall. That type of thing becomes really useful. Maybe even also try to figure out how you can implement this broader. Try to find other security tools. Take the logs out of pfSense and send those logs to a logging system like Splunk. They have free versions of Splunk that are available. have that set up as a separate machine with its own storage or a VM with its own storage, send the logs off to Splunk, start creating reports so that you can sort of create your own little security service right there on a desktop, all by getting all of these softwares going, because all of those things that you would learn by installing pfSense, by setting up rules in the IPS, by running the reports that are on the report server, those are all things that the enterprise security teams are doing every day, all day. And even if they're not using pfSense, even if they're not using Splunk, even if they're not using Snort, you're still able to apply those same technologies, the same knowledge to whatever they happen to be using.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you start this, please call me back and tell me what in the world's going on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, in a few weeks, I'll give you I'll hopefully be able to get in contact with you and let you know, give you an update. Thank you so much, Professor Messer.
I can't wait. Thanks, Matthew.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I wonder if this is now becoming a thing. It's not becoming a thing. I'm hoping for the best. I'm really interested in knowing the rest of that story. Let's go to 601. Thanks for holding for so long, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
How you doing, Professor? My name is Kendrick. I'm from Vicksburg, Mississippi, and I'm a truck driver. And I'm finna make a career change into the IT world, but I wanted to know what would be the best place to start at.
Good for you. This is not an uncommon thing for people to do, by the way. So your first thing is you're not alone in wanting to do something like this. And in fact, I would argue that kind of within IT, we sort of make these changes in our career all the time. People move from working with operating systems to now working with networks. They move from working with networks to working with security. We are constantly in IT. We are constantly in a situation where we have no idea what's happening around us, and we sort of have to pretend we do. So already for people that are sort of moving, I've had people call me and say, "I'm a nurse. I want to move into IT. I'm in transportation. I want to move into IT. I'm in desktop publishing, and I want to move into IT." That's an absolutely reasonable thing to think about doing. And as I mentioned earlier, IT is the sky's the limit. So why wouldn't you think of doing that? The question, and by the way, the thing I even say about that is you have some very, very powerful experience, some very powerful knowledge in the things that you do in that field. You have knowledge about transportation and trucking that other people in IT don't have. If somebody's coming from nursing, you have knowledge in medical that other people in IT don't have and could not possibly have. If you're coming from a printing house, there are things in that you have knowledge of that other people in IT can't possibly have. People in IT would love to have that knowledge if you're working for them. For example, there's plenty of transportation companies in Atlanta, in Dallas, and other places around in the country. You could work for a transportation company in their IT department and have a lot more knowledge about what's really going on with the technology. You'd be able to tie the technology and the company together quite nicely. And it may not be trucking. It may be you're working for an airline. It could be that you're working for a train company. You know, there's plenty of opportunities in IT in all of those transportation areas. So I would recommend that it may not work out that way, but you could find an advantage when you're changing careers like this. There may be an advantage to looking with those organizations to see if they would let somebody like that's coming from that same field, that same vertical market, now work with technology. The second thing I'd recommend doing is, and this is probably the biggest challenge that people have to get through when they're changing careers, is you're almost in every case having to take a step back financially. And that's just enormous. Yeah. That's a killer sometimes. It's so difficult to make something like that happen. But I can tell you, I'll at least give you this perspective. There's going to be a lot of moving and shaking that has to go on to make that happen. But in IT, there's always upward mobility. So what you start at today is absolutely going to be different into the future. You kind of have to take it as an investment and then know that I will get back to the point where I'm making what I'm making now, and I'll absolutely be able to get beyond that. That part I can tell you 100% for sure. The opportunity is there. It has always been there in IT, and it continues to be there. The real challenge now is just getting that foot in the door. And the other piece that I tell people that are changing careers, you already know people in the industry. You already know people at different companies. You already know other adults in your adult life as you've been adulting out in the world. You've got people at church. You've got people at other companies. You've got people that your family knows. You've got people. Take advantage of all these people that you know and ask them, hey, I'm moving careers. I've been working on these certifications. I've gone to classes to do this type of thing, or I've been working, volunteering, doing this type of technology work. I'm really interested in doing this full time for a company. If you know anybody or you hear anything, please let me know. Put the feelers out there. Okay. Let them know that you're doing that type of thing. Because now you've got this group of people that you know from the pub, from the church, from the thing that you do on the weekend, from the gym, as I mentioned. There's all places where you know these folks. You can take advantage of that as well. People like to hire people they know. It's really now a point of figuring out what is it you want to do, and at least, and I'm not talking about 10 years from now. I hate those questions in an interview that say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Don't worry about 5 years. I'm just trying to figure out when I'm going to be 6 months from now. And technology is sort of like that. You can't plan technology. What's happening 5 years from now? I don't know. I don't even know if Twitter will be here in 5 years. I don't know if YouTube will be here in 5 years. There'll be, Discord will be something new. There'll be another set of 5 services that are coming up. We don't know. So I know what I want to do 6 months from now. I'm going to work towards that. That is something I can work on. I know it's tangible. I know that there's somewhere I can be. Maybe I've already talked with somebody and they said, well, if you get your A+, I can fit you in here. If you get your Network Plus, I can see if there's a position available for you over here. But you have to find out that piece. So there's going to be some recon you need to do. You need to go talk to some people and find out, if you were going to hire me for this particular job, what things should I have? What knowledge should I need? Okay. Do I need a formal education? Do I need an AA degree? Do I need an A+ certification? You tell me, I'll go get that thing. And they'll tell you. Okay. So that's the thing you need to work on, is putting together the plan. That's probably the most important thing than any of the technical stuff you need to learn. That's the easy part. You've already had a career where you've had responsibility, where you've had to be in a certain place. You've had to deal with more federal regulations than anybody in IT has ever had to deal with. So you already can follow the path. You just need to now get that path written up and figure out the best way to get there. And every geography in the country is a little bit differently. So what you find is your path is going to be different than what's happening in California. So now's the time to start putting together the strategy that you can then start executing on.
Yes, sir. Those words are very helpful to me, because that was one of my biggest concerns, was the drawback for the financial part. And I'm like, right now I'm up there in the 60s, but then I'm like, oh my, I had to make a drawback, and with me and my wife, and I had to talk to her about it, and I know we can swing it, and but then in the future, who knows what the future holds? So. And everything's going towards technology anyway, so that's why I really want to go into this.
We've all had to do something like that in our lives. I was in an apartment. I got married. I moved in with my wife's family in her house. We all hated each other, but we all managed to make it happen. And we didn't hate each other, but there's a bunch of adults living in a place that a bunch of adults shouldn't be living in, and we're all on top of each other. But we made it work. And we finally saved up enough money. The jobs got better. We got out of, and it just kept going from there. So even though there's a little bit of time where you think you're going backwards, but really you're going forward, you just don't realize it yet. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Professor.
Best of luck, Kendrick.
All right, bye-bye.
I think that's a challenge. I get people all the time, every week, that are sending me those questions about, I'm doing this now, and I'm completely changing careers. Have I lost my mind? And no, you've absolutely not lost your mind. You've now realized there's incredible upward mobility in technology. You just have to apply yourself, and it's there for you to take. But the challenge is now just getting to that point for those. Let's get some questions from the chat room real quick. Some folks in the chat room asking, I mentioned get as much Q&A as you can. I don't currently have Q&A books for the Core 1 and Core 2 tests. Those are next on my list. I got to get through all the videos first. Make sure you have some videos you can watch. And it's on my list. These are important things I want to have available to you, are a set of questions that have the same feel as an actual exam question. So not just definition questions. I want to give you a similar experience. I don't want to give you the questions from the exam. I want to give you something that makes you think about how you can answer those questions on the exam. I think the flavor of question is just as important as the content of the questions as well. So I will be working on some. They're not going to be available this month, but later on, later down the road, you will see some of those available. Other questions. Yeah, some people are saying security jobs. They're seeing places that want 10 years of experience with security, and that's not unreasonable. Security requires just this big foundational knowledge to be able. That's why with Matthew, who called, I was wondering, what is going on there to jump into security. But maybe it's not the type of security position I'm thinking about, and dealing with those. Another question in the chat room, can I skip the Network Plus if I did it in 2004 and go straight to Security Plus? Now, this is another one of those questions, by the way, when people say, what certification should I do next? I don't know. I have no idea what you're trying to do. And that's the question I have to ask next is, what are you trying to do? What do you want to do with that? What value is Security Plus giving you? What thing are you looking to do with Security Plus? I think some people think Security Plus is an entry-level security exam. Therefore, I should be able to get an entry-level security position with that. And as I've just mentioned, that's not the way security works at all. However, in the Department of Defense in the United States, Security Plus is considered a minimum, one of the minimum certifications you need to have to get a job with the Department of Defense. So it depends on your situation. If you're saying, I'm trying to get a job with the U.S. federal government Department of Defense, can I go straight to Security Plus and do this? Yes, you can. Each one of these stand on their own. There's a little bit of networking in A+. There's a little bit of security in A+ and Network Plus. There's a little bit of networking in Security Plus. There's a little bit of overlap between all of them. There's not a lot of overlap between all of them. And there are plenty of people that come to my site and take the Security Plus as their first exam. That's their first certification in IT. They take Security Plus, and that's perfectly reasonable. It is not a highly technical security certification. It is one that gives you a broad overview of the security landscape, and you have to understand how all of these pieces work together, but there's not a lot of command line things you have to do with Security Plus. Network Plus, A+, there's a lot more command line you have to worry about. And in fact, as a follow-up to that, he says, I heard the ISC2 is the standard. And in fact, ISC2, the organization ISC2, has the CISSP, is indeed considered kind of the gold standard for security. It is sort of a very broad overview exam, very tough exam certification to get. In fact, it requires a minimum amount of practical experience in the security field before you can even earn the certification. So that's one, you can't just show up and take a test. You have already had to do this, and then you can take the test and earn that certification. That's absolutely the case. That's very, very true. Many organizations look for someone who has a CISSP as one of the criteria they use for hiring within security. And so that gives you an idea. When we're hiring for security, we're already looking for somebody who's done this or had the foundation to be able to do more of this. So that's important. And I guess it just depends on what you're looking to do. If you need, and I will put this, I kind of say this every month, and a couple people have called just to verify this is true. But if you want to get a job in security, you need to have the strongest foundation in networking as you can get. And that seems like it shouldn't work that way. But if you get into the industry, you'll find a huge amount of what you do in IT security is networking. And it's applying security on top of the foundation of networking that you have. So that's what I mean when I talk about those things. Another couple of questions. Should I study for the A+? There are two exams right now, the 900 series exams and the 1000 series exams. If you take the 901 and 902, you have to take those together You can't mix and match. You can't take the 901 and the 1002. You have to either take the 901, 902 to get A+ certified, or you have to take the 1001, 1002 to get A+ certified. Which one should you take? It's really a numbers game at this point. It's about physics. If you can pass both 900 series exams by July 31st, when they retire, you can be A+ certified and you're good to go. That's only 5 months from now. It's not a lot. It's not a lot of time. These are big exams. You have to pass 2 exams in 5 months. Anything can happen in your life in those 5 months. So if you think you can get it done by then, the 900 series is a perfectly viable one to do. The problem right now is there's not a large number of study materials available right now for the 1001 and the 1002. Next month, about this time, you will start seeing some books finally hit Amazon. So it's going to be another month. When we talk about this next month, I'll probably very definitively tell you 1001, 1002. Get the books when they come out in a week or two. Use that as your books. Watch the videos. You're on your way. If I was taking this right, if I was making that decision right now, knowing what I know about my life, there's no way I can get through both of these exams in 5 months. I know what I have to deal with right now at work, at home. There's responsibilities. I would myself probably take the 1000 series exam. So that's my approach to it anyway. That's kind of where I come from whenever I talk about what to do, when to do it. It's all about timing. It's all about timing. So that's what I recommend you do as well, is think about timing as well. Think about what your objectives are, and then think about the timing of those. That's the real key. Let's quickly, we're already way over time, but that's okay. We'll go to 813 down the state from me. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Mike. I'm calling from Tampa, Florida.
Welcome. What we can do for you, Mike?
Hey, just a quick question. My son's just recently enlisted in the Air National Guard.
Nice. And
he's heading out in a couple months for basic training in tech school. And he's doing the cybersecurity classes, I guess, in the Guard. And one of the things they, have there is the Security Plus certification. They take the test and stuff at the end of the tech school. And I'm wondering if, what he can do now to prepare for that. Because he's not, he's only 18. He doesn't have a lot of experience in networking and security and that kind of stuff. Is there anything he can do now to prepare for that to help him pass that?
Well, good for him. I like what he's doing there, and he's going to get a lot of good practical experience in security at many levels. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. One of the things he can do right now to kind of get a jump start on the Security Plus, there's tons of study materials out in the world. There's places he can go right now to start getting some security knowledge. The videos that are on YouTube are a good place to start, whether they're mine or anybody else's. I think videos work well to kind of give a broad overview. You're not sticking a book in front of him and saying, here, read this 550-page book before you leave. I would not have wanted to do that myself when I was his age. So it would help, but he's probably not going to read it. Watch some videos on YouTube. Okay. You're going to get distracted. Stop watching the ones on the sidebar. Focus on the playlist. Get through some of these topics and get kind of the security has its own language. IT security has its own nomenclature, and we tend to talk in abbreviations about how the nomenclature works together. So one of the things that will help him when he gets into these classes is he's going to hear people talking about how he's got a firewall that's set up with certain features and capabilities. He's got an IPS. He's working with protecting the PII. He's got to work more on how the QoS is going to allow the IPS to identify people that are coming in. Just goes on and on and on with all of these abbreviations that we use. So the more he gets familiar with the terms that we use, the easier it's going to be for him to sit in these classes and get a perspective of that. The other thing I might mention, and maybe he's a tinkerer, maybe he's somebody who likes to get his hands dirty a little bit, is some of the things I mentioned earlier, which is download PF Sense. download Snort. There are pre-built VMs available on the internet you can download, and then start running real traffic through these firewalls and see what the firewall tells you, and look through the logs. And you're not going to understand everything about it. You're not going to understand how to parse out everything the firewall is telling you, but you'll start to get the feel for what it takes to plug this equipment in an enterprise, what you can expect to see out of these logs, and how you can start changing some of the rules of your firewall around to start allowing and blocking different types of traffic through your network. Then start going out to sites, run some vulnerability scanners through it. See if it identifies somebody trying to take advantage of a vulnerability on a server, and see if it pops up in your IPS. Those types of things can be very useful, that you now have some practical hands-on. Now you can sit in the meetings that are taking place in the training classes and really start understanding more about what they're talking about. There's at least something you can apply it to.
Right. Okay. I appreciate your time.
I wish him the best of luck, Mike, and you as well.
All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. Take care. Sounds like a fun thing to do too. And what a good place to learn that type of technology, where you can really start applying it immediately. Quickly, we'll go to the 845 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller.
Zachary Shoites.
Oh, there you are. Welcome. What can we do for you?
Oh, hey. I'm from Nanuet, New York. I just passed the Core 1 at the 10001.
Nice, congratulations.
Thank you. What do you think of the Core 2 version of it? Like, are they like small questions that aren't really, what do you call it? Like taught in the CompTIA A guides and stuff that you would recommend me studying?
Well, from the Core 1, you probably saw that the questions are not definition type questions. They're not very straightforward. They're questions. Some of them, or at least, we're giving pictures and you can see what they're talking about. The 902 tends to focus a lot more on the troubleshooting. It tends to focus on troubleshooting operating systems, which are in and of themselves very complex. So one of the things I would recommend that you do is get a feel for how to do this practical troubleshooting. I give some examples in my videos, but unless you're doing the hands-on for the 902, you're really not quite getting exactly the feel for that. Understanding how to use these tools that are available to you, today we talked about Reliability Monitor. A lot of people had no idea Reliability Monitor was in there. There's a specific use case where that can really help you out. And I tried to focus on that use case during that particular question. So try to bring up those tools, try to use those tools, bring up Performance Monitor, monitor the performance of your system over an entire day, have it write those performance statistics to disk, bring up that performance statistic file, create some reports from that information. There are things you can do to really solidify those topics. And when you get to the exam for the 902, it's going to expect that you know those things. So maybe that's what you should focus on is get that hands-on. And I gave you that link earlier for modern.ie. So you'll have your hands on Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. They're all downloadable and free. You can use them immediately. That would give you a big leg up when you're ready to walk into your exam, because you've got some practical knowledge in your head on how to take advantage of those tools.
Great. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling. That comes in handy. In the chat room real quick. This is, and people, we kind of been talking about this very quickly. I'll talk about this as well. Earlier, we were talking about Network Plus, CCNA, really CCENT. And I really did make the point that those are really different certifications, very, very different certifications. To this day, I even see people talking on Reddit and other places that, oh, it's interchangeable. Network Plus, CCENT, they're basically the same thing. That's completely wrong. They're not even close to being the same thing. They are extremely different certifications. There's a completely different set of knowledge you need for both of those. The Cisco exams go really in depth. You're configuring and doing extensive work at the command line of a switch and a router. They are designed for people who want different things. In some cases, Network Plus could be a nice lead-in into CCENT. Some people prefer skipping over Network Plus, going directly to CCENT. Just keep in mind, you're going to have to now learn all the stuff you did not get in Network Plus that is also in CCENT, which is a good chunk of it, and then some. There's a whole lot more in CCENT for those things as well. So we were kind of throwing those out as if they were interchangeable earlier. I just want to make sure everybody knows they're not even close, not even remarkably close to being interchangeable. Don't put yourself in a position where it seems like they are. Whenever you work through those, that can mess you up if you're trying to decide between them. If you're trying to decide between Network Plus and the CCENT, and you're saying, which one of these should I take? You're making the wrong decision somewhere. Something is not quite adding up, because that should not be an either-or situation. You should be taking Network Plus for a very specific set of requirements. You should be going to CCENT for a different set of requirements. So hopefully I was able to make that very, very clear. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for your time in the first hour. We cannot do these Q&As without you live. It'd just be me answering multiple choice questions, and nobody wants that. Thank you for doing all of that. Also, thank you for the after show. I like having the phone calls come in and having us talk about whatever happens to be on our mind. And other people in the chat room are saying, well, let's do some more of these. Do you have a Cisco user live group? Not yet. Not yet. That would be nice to have, though. And it's worth a thought. And I like that you're asking. So thank you for that. But I don't have one yet. You can always go to the calendar to see when the A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus study groups will be. Those are the 4 study groups we're doing right now. A+ is obviously 2 of those. And then the Network Plus and Security Plus. Network Plus is next week. So if you like this, come back on Wednesday of next week. We've got Network Plus for you. We'd love to see you there. Thank you for being here this time, though. We'll see you next time on the A+ Study Group.